Hello, Nick Zuccarello here, and I'm going to have the privilege of showing you the introduction to the Unreal Engine 5.7. The first thing we'll look at is actually going to Epic's website so we can download the engine and set up our account for the first time. And then after that, let's hop over to YouTube and we can take a look at the Unreal Engine's channel that they have on YouTube. There's tons of great learning material and things to get you started there. So it's a great resource to take a look at. Once we have the engine downloaded, we can load the Epic launcher. And from the Epic launcher, we're able to add new versions of the engine. We're able to take a look at projects that we're building. We're able to create new projects. So there's a whole lot there with the launcher, and we'll take a look at all the different options that we can do with the launcher. We'll create a third-person project together, and then we'll take a look at the directory structures that are built behind the scenes. Whenever you create one of these projects, we'll understand their folder structure and everything that's needed to take a project from one computer to the other. We'll talk about Epic's content browser and how that you can take a look at all the different assets that are within the engine. We'll take a look at different models and textures and directory structures and all the things that are going to be needed for you to organize your project in a meaningful way. We'll take a look at how we can navigate within the Unreal Engine together and all the different ways and controls that you can easily manipulate your 3D scene. We'll take a look together for their different transform tools, so we'll be able to move, we'll be able to rotate, and we'll be able to scale our objects and move them around within the scene. We'll take a look at how we can save our levels, and then we can also go to the project settings and make sure that that level that we're working on is the default map that we start up with every single time that we load the engine. I'll teach you how to make a very simple material library so we can set up a master material, which you see on the left, and then from there we'll be able to parameterize values that will turn into material instances, which will allow us to very easily tune material values directly in the engine. We'll get an introduction to the Unreal Blueprint system and how that we can use that as a prefab in a way to build building structures within our environment, and then very easily be able to manipulate that one master blueprint, and all the different children will show up that same way inside of the world that you see here. We'll take a look at how we can use programs like Maya or Blender, and we can do all the modeling in that package, export the results out, and get that into Unreal. We'll take a look at how we can import those models, and at the time that we import, we could either tell them to separate or we can combine those different meshes together. We'll take a look at how we can automatically create materials or tell it not to create materials at import time. We'll talk about how we can take those imported meshes and then be able to fill those with the materials that we made in our material library. We'll take a look at how to make a very simple blueprint system. So whenever our character enters into a trigger volume, it will fire off and it'll actually play an animation for us and lift the door up and close the door when we move out of that way. We'll also take a look at setting up a dynamic material system. So whenever we come within range, it'll actually change the material value to make it look like there's some interactive component going on with that. So there's a whole lot for us to learn, so let's just go ahead and dive in and let's take a look at the Unreal Engine 5.7. Okay, as we get started, there's two things I want to pull to your attention right off the bat. So the Unreal Engine, let's go load up a web browser, just do a search for the Unreal Engine. You'll find their landing page super easy, and you'll land on something that looks like this. You can see they've got a nice button over here to say, go ahead and get the Unreal Engine. That's going to give you the launcher. So we'll look at that and we'll explore everything that's associated with that. But before you do that, you need to make an account with Epic. And you definitely want this because we're going to be talking about Fab. They've got an entire library of different assets that you can download and use. So that's one thing that we'll explore. The other thing I want to pull to your attention is the YouTube page that Unreal Engine has. So go to YouTube and do a search for the Unreal Engine. You should find their landing page for their YouTube channel. And there's so much great information that they have on here. So these are a lot of different recordings that they've made for different training material. There's different things from live streams that they've done over the years. They've done seminars, they've done different conventions and things like that. And they do a really good job of sharing so much information. Really, the problem that you're going to have is exploring all this content and finding exactly what you need. So they do have a couple different playlists that you can go sift through for different topics and things like that. They actually have a course area for learning material. but there's tons and tons of good information on there. So I can't recommend their YouTube channel enough for you. I think that's going to give you a great amount of information, and it'll keep you learning, and you'll never be able to exhaust everything that they're putting out there for you. Okay, now that you've downloaded the launcher and you've loaded it up, you should be able to see something like what I'm taking a look at here. After you've got your account, you should be able to see your name down here at the bottom. And I'm on the Unreal Engine component of this right now. And you can see they've got a news section. They've got some different samples that you could take a look at. This library is the thing that you're going to care about the most when you're making your own project. And we'll go over that. There's this twin motion area that you can go to. And this is, you can see this is for like architectural visualization, things like that. And they also have this thing for reality scan. So the thing that you're really going to care about with your own projects is this library section. They also have a library within through here. These are different games and things like that that you can have. So it's also like a store, right? So you can also buy different different games and different mobile things, all kinds of stuff, right? But again, as a developer, you're probably really only going to care about this Unreal Engine area, and then you're also going to probably care about this Fab area. If you go to Fab, this is their area where you've got a library of different assets that people made, and they've got things for sale, right? So they also have this offers this limited time free area. So anytime you see something that's free from Fab, it's always a good idea. Just go ahead and grab it. You don't have to download it or anything. And it puts it into your library. So like if I go to my library that's up here, you can see here's all the different free material that I've grabbed. And it's not everything, but it's quite a few different things that I've grabbed over the years. So if you've got something free, it looks interesting to you, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and grab it, and you'll be able to use that in any of your different projects that you're using. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this Unreal Engine area. And yours might look a little bit different. This might be completely empty because if you're a brand new user, you don't have any engines downloaded, right? So I've got a bunch of different engine versions that I've downloaded over the years. You can see here's all the different projects that I've been able to set up and that I've worked on and stuff like that, right? Everything with Unreal, they always do a really good job with their search function. So we'll explore that in the Unreal Engine, but that also extends to this launcher as well, right? So go ahead and grab your engine version. The one that I'm using for the recording of the video this time is 5.7.4, okay? And if there's an update to the engine, they will they'll have this like plus thing, and you can actually get the latest incremental version that they're doing for that. They also have a really good program for allowing you to have early access to the latest version of the engine that is not like the stable launched version yet. So you would be able to get access to that as well. So go ahead and download, make sure you have at the very least for following along with this content that you have Unreal Engine 5.7.4. Go ahead and grab that. And then once you have it, you can choose to launch which version of the engine that you want, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose this 5.7.4, and I'm going to go ahead and say launch, and this should launch the actual engine. Yeah, we've got the engine loaded, and you can see what it's going to do is open up this this area for us that's going to give us a lot of different options for starting a project off. If you're just new to things, they've even added this new getting started area, and this is where it lands immediately when you open this up. They've got some different training material that you can take a look on here, and they're even giving you different categories up here for what you might be interested in, depending on the industry that you're working in. So they've got that. They've got sample projects. Again, Epic is so amazing with being very generous with giving away content and making example projects and things like that. So there's a lot that you can take a look in through the sample projects area. They got their forums, they've got documentation, tutorial. There's just a lot, right? But again, as a new developer, the thing that you're probably caring about is maybe this area for a new project. Now you can go to my project, so you can click that and you can open that up. But if you're a new user, you probably don't have any projects, right? So what do? We just click this new project area, and it's going to give you this dialog box that's going to allow you to pick what it is that you feel like you're trying to create here, right? So we got games, we got film and television, we've got architecture, we've got automotive, and we've got simulation. And you can see on each one of these panels, they've got different templates that you can use for this. What we're going to be using for today's content and taking a look at that is I want to go to the games section, and you can see within games, they've got there's an intro to Unreal project that if you load that up, that one actually has like a blueprint system. Like it's a little mini type of game that takes you through and makes it real easy for you to like step through in a game-like environment to learn the engine. So it's actually pretty interesting. If you're trying to be bare bones, you put a blank project in there, right? You don't want any of the extra stuff or anything like that, right? First person template, like a first person shooter, they've got a template set up for that. They've got a gun and everything kind of working, so you can go through there, and that's pretty fun. We got the third person template, and that's actually what I'm going to be directing you all to use today for this. But they also have a top down, they have an AR thing, they also have a virtual reality template, and they also have something for vehicles as well. Right. But again, I would like us to use the third person template. I think it's a pretty good template to just kind of understand what's going on. I think it gives you some interesting vantage points, and we can move around our little level that we have and things like that. So I like that. The other thing that I like with the third person template is that you get access to their mannequin that they have. So if you've got any other projects, scale is a really important thing. And I really like taking their mannequin and pulling that into Maya, Blender, ZBrush, whatever your program is that you're using to build models with. You need a scale reference, so you would have access to that one on here as well. By default, when we go to this third person, you can see we're going to be doing a blueprint type of project. We'll get into blueprints a little bit more, but that's visual scripting versus C++, which is hardcore programming, and that's not what I'm going after there, right? Target platform, desktop, we've got the quality presets set to maximum, and variant. There's some different types of variants that you could put within here if you're trying to do some stuff with that. I'll just leave that to none. And then this is where you give your project name. So I will just call this default third person, like this. You do have to be a little bit careful about some of the characters that you might be using within here and how long the name is. So I'll leave that up to you. You could name it whatever you want, but I'm going to go ahead and click create for that. It's going to create the actual project, and it should go ahead and launch that. The first time that you get the engine and you load up your project, you can see it takes maybe a little bit of time to do some compiling of these shaders and things like that. So look, congratulations, we've made our first project and we're inside the engine. So let's start digging into this and start learning about the engine. Okay, we've got our project made, and as much as I'd like to just jump in there and start showing you the engine, I do think I need to give you a little bit of an understanding of what's happening with this project when we create it, right? So if we go back to the Epic launcher, you should see some new thing that is named whatever your project is. Yours is probably going to be easy to find because you don't have any projects, so that should just show up there like that. I wanted to show you this. If you right click on here, you can say show in folder. It will open up a Windows Explorer window, and it will take you directly to where the projects sit. So you might notice on mine is probably not where yours sits. So let's take a look at that. I made a custom path for where I want all my Unreal projects to sit. But by default, if we just go and open up a new Windows browser, and we'll just do Windows E to open this up. We go to Documents and we go to Unreal Projects. This is the default area where Unreal Projects sit, right? So what if you want to change where that location is? If we go ahead and launch the engine again, so we've got this, let's go ahead and take a look. When we go to create the new project, you can see right down here, this project location. If you want to give a custom area for where you want to put your projects and have that be stored, you can go ahead and click this little folder icon, and you can go ahead and navigate to a folder structure of your choosing, and that's where we'll put the Unreal projects from there on out. Let's go ahead and talk about navigation. So being a 3D artist, what I've observed about any new 3D program, and Unreal is a 3D program of sorts. You're in a 3D world. In order to be successful at that program, you really need to know how to navigate the 3D space. Okay, so that's the first thing I really want to teach you, and I want to go over with you is this navigation. So you can see Unreal's got quite a few different ways of getting around within the world within here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this basic mode first. And you do need a mouse that's got a 3-button configuration to it. And if it's got the scroll wheel, even better, right? So with this basic mode, if you do the left mouse, you can just click and you can go left and right, and that will rotate the camera. Imagine your head being on a stick or something like that, and you can just rotate your head, something like that, right? Now, if you push forward and backwards with that, that's basically like you're in a car and you can either drive forward and you can drive backwards with it, right? So we also have on the right mouse button, we've got the same thing where right mouse is just freely look. So the left mouse, you can look left and right, but you can't look up and down, right? But if you do the right mouse, that's basically like your head, where you can just look around in the world, right? Okay, so middle mouse, if you click and hold that one, if you push up and down or forward and backwards with the mouse, this is going to take you up in the air and it's going to bring you down. And then if you go to the right, it's going to be like you're strafing, or imagine, strafing, basically you're looking at some point and you're moving your body to the left or you're moving your body to the right. So that's what the middle mouse is going to do for you. If you do your scroll wheel, that will let you zoom in and out. Okay, so if you just do middle mouse, you can move around. You can go strafe left and right, but you can go up and down with that. Left mouse is going to rotate around and kind of drive forward. And if you want, you can add left and right mouse together, and it will basically be like the middle mouse button. So that lets you just kind of drive around and then quickly add the right mouse button with the left, and it lets you start to move around that way. Okay, so you might notice that there is a speed to this camera. So if we've got a really large environment to get over to the corner, it takes us quite a bit of effort to get over there. If you look here in the interface, they do have this camera speed button that you see here. So you can actually change this. You can go make it quite a bit higher. So let's do something like 5 and see what that's like. And that feels pretty good for a space like this to move around. So again, I'm just using left mouse and I'm just going forward and backwards. And then if I add the right mouse to it, I can go up and I can go down. And then I can just let go of left mouse and I can just right click and I'm just looking around. So there is quite a bit to this, and you do have to get used to it for sure. I know when I first started on Unreal, this was a little bit confusing for me, but with time, this becomes second nature, and it really does allow you to move around the world fairly quickly. Okay, so that's pretty much the basic mode. So let's take a look at this first person mode. If you've played any first person shooter games, you're going to be well acquainted with this movement system. All you have to do is hold down the right mouse button on your mouse, and now you use the keypad and you do W, A, S, and D. And if you do A, it's going to strafe left. You got D, it's going to strafe right. If you do W, it's going to move you forward. If you do S, it's going to move you backwards like this. And then bonus for you, if you do Q, that'll take you down like you're in an elevator, and then E will raise you up. So very quickly you can move around like this. So I do feel like this is a little bit fast for the movement for me. We've already looked at, if we click here, we can change the camera speed. And if we put that back down to like something like 1, that's going to give me speed like what I would normally want. I'm not the biggest fan of this. You might like this hotkey though. If you hold down your left mouse button or your right mouse button and you do the scroll wheel, you can see up there on the interface, it's actually controlling the camera speed. So that's an interactive way of you being able to control the camera speed and just raise that up very quickly. And if you get into a situation where you're like, okay, I got over in this corner and I want to slow this down quite a bit, then you could slow that down to maybe something like 1 within in there. So that's how you do that. All right. The next thing, let's take a look. Any of these modes, this will work. Focusing on something in the engine. So if we go ahead and take our left mouse, let's just click on one of these objects, and then you tap F, and it will frame in on that object. If we select this one back here, we tap F, it's going to take us here. You could use the other camera movements that we've just been taking a look at to kind of rotate the camera, stuff like that. But get used to that. Select something, tap F, right? So this is pretty good for getting even far off distances. Like if I, not that wall's probably not the best thing to select. That thing's pretty far off in the distance, right? So I select it, I tap F, and it's going to take me right to that thing. Now, what I want to show you is this Maya mode. So me being a longtime Maya user, I felt right at home doing this. You select an object, you tap F, and it frames in on it, and it's setting at the center of the world. This is your new pivot for your camera. And if you hold down Alt, just like in Maya, and you do Alt left mouse, you can rotate around the object. If you do Alt middle, that's going to strafe like left and right and move you up and down. And if you hold down Alt and then right click, that will zoom you in and out. So again, if you're a Maya user, you're going to be familiar with this type of movement system. So I think together with all these different things that we've taken a look at, although we're able to get through this very quickly, it's going to take you some time to figure out this navigation system and get really, really proficient at it. Again, my idea for you is spending a little bit of time, I would say at least 15 minutes going through this and making sure that you feel comfortable navigating around within the space in here. Some extra stuff to take a look at. So it's possible if I just tap the one key, this level, Epic has already put a camera bookmark in there for you, which is pretty nice because there was times where if you accidentally jumped off the side of the map or something like that, it was really hard to get the camera back to this, this initial position like this. So it's possible that you can store your own cameras, right? So like, I'm just going to move this around here, and I'm going to frame this up right here like that. And I'm like, okay, I think that's a pretty cool camera position. I'd like to get back to that again. So they've already used the one key for this. If you hold down Control, if you take a look here, this camera bookmarks, Control, and I'll hit 2 while I'm holding down Control. You can say it's saved bookmark. And then I'm just going to go and make another one. I'm going to come to this corner right over here. I'm going to say this is going to be my other shot that I want to do. And I'll do Control and I'll add 3 to it, and you can see it's saved the bookmark. So now if I tap the number key 1, it gives me the Unreal default one that came with this level. If I tap 2, then here's my second camera, and 3 for my third one. So very easy. You can do this all the way up to 1, 2, 3, all the way to 0 on there, and you can store quite a few different cameras that way. All right. So that's going to get us to where we can navigate. We got some cameras stored on here. Let's take a look at this. Let's play our level and let's check this out. So if we come up here to the top bar and we click this play button, we can actually play the game. So we're going to play and we're going to move around within here. This one is for the third person is very similar to this first person mode that I got listed there. So you're going to use W, A, S, and D. So W is going to push you forward, S is going to move you back, A is going to move left, and D is to the right. Okay. And if you take your left mouse and just, or actually no mouse button, you just take your mouse and you move it around, this is controlling your camera at that point. If you hit the space bar, you get to jump with the character like that. And we'll just run around just a little bit. And you can see anytime you want to get out of this mode where you're done playing and you want to go back to the editor mode, just tap escape. And it'll actually keep your camera right where you were looking and everything else like that. That's why I was saying sometimes if you accidentally jumped off the world and your camera is really far off, all you'd have to do is tap like 1 if we stored a camera, 2 or 3, and we can get back to those camera views like that. Okay, so we can come up here and we can play this. I would be on the lookout for this on the interface. If you notice that we're hovering our cursor over that play button, and it's actually telling us some of the hotkey information for that. So you can do Alt P, and that will actually play. And let's just run around. And again, we can just have a little bit of fun and try this out. But again, my idea for you is get used to playing, get used to setting up some cameras and moving around it's going to be really, really important for you to navigate around within through here. Okay, practice that for about 15 minutes. Trust me, it'll be 15 minutes well worth your time and effort, and it will make you a whole lot more successful in this engine. All right, now that we know how to move around in our 3D world, let's start taking a look at how we can integrate assets into this world that don't already exist. So what I'm going to talk to you about right now is the content browser. So the content browser is Unreal's way of organizing all the different assets that exist within the program. You can see in my layout down here, the content browser sits right down here. You can hit Control Spacebar and that pulls up and down the content browser. And you might be going like, why would I be pulling this up and down if it already exists? I'm going to bet that your layout probably looks a little bit different than mine. I'm using a classic Unreal Engine 4 layout, and I'll show you how you can get to that. You can come up here to Window, and then you can say Load Layout, and the default editor layout probably looks something like that for you. And then this is where you'd hit the Control Spacebar, and you can go and say, pull up and down this content browser. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I'm just used to Unreal the old way that it worked. And I like to have this content browser open all the time and just to be able to see it there. So the way I like to do the layout is this: Window, Load Layout, and I just do UE4 Classic Layout. And you can see that it integrates the content browser right in here like that. If you didn't want to do it that way, let's see here. Let's go back to this and let's go to the load layout and let's do the default layout like we've got there. I'll hit Control Spacebar and we'll do the, we'll go ahead and bring up the content browser that way. And if you take a look right here, you can see there's this dock and layout. So I'll go ahead and click that and it will dock it within there in the layout area. You are missing some stuff over here that we'll take a look at a little bit later. So again, I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to use this Unreal Classic layout. So it's up to you how you want to navigate and operate the interface, but this is how I'm going to use it. This is how I feel the most comfortable. And like I said, for me, the advantage is that all this information is just there all the time and I don't have to fight with the interface. Well, let's talk about the content browser and the directory structure and how this all works. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this little arrow here. You can see if we go to all, we can collapse everything, open it up, and we can see that we've got a content folder and we've got an engine folder. Really, the place that you're going to be working out of is this content area, and it's really up to you what you want to do with this content folder. I want to show you this right off the bat. If we right click on content and we go to show and explore right here, it will actually open up on your Windows machine. Where does this folder structure actually sit, right? And so we've already looked at the directory structure, the project setup that Unreal makes. If you go into that project and you take a look, you can see these are some of the default folders that it makes for you. Now within here, content is where everything is actually stored for this project. So if we go here and take a look, and let me just set this off to the side for just a second. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to show you that it's possible to see a mirror of this work that's within here, right? So what's being stored on your computer is this. So if we went into characters, double click on that, and then we go to mannequins, you can see we've got this here and go in there. And then within the mannequins, this is pretty standard stuff that Epic has been teaching everybody on how to organize their file structures and things like that. So I think this is the right way to go. For this one particular asset, they try to contain everything within that that character, that mannequin, right? So it's really easy to move that mannequin from one project to the other. But within that character, everything to make that thing work is this folder structure that you see here. So there's an animations folder, and then you can see they've got folders for the different types of animations that they've got on this character. You can see there's the materials for it. So this is the different materials that actually go in there and they make the skins and make it look like it's metal and everything else like that, right? We have meshes, and that's the pieces of geometry that you have to actually make up the mesh for this. In this case, it's considered an SK, as skeletal mesh. And that just means it's a mesh and it has a skeleton associated with it, so it can deform. And then here's rigs within the program. You can set up rigs are control sets to make it very easy for an animator or anybody to take this mannequin, this character that you have, and then grab certain things and be able to animate it. And then within there is textures. And so they're using textures. They've got a Manny and a Quinn. So they've got a male and a female version of the model. And you can see they've got a shared folder. And if you go within there, something to note, after you've imported things into Unreal, it saves it out as this .u asset. And that is Unreal's proprietary format that they have for everything. Okay, so again, if I wanted to take this mannequin from this project and I made another, like let's say the first person shooter project, right? And I wanted to convert this mannequin and move it over, I could just copy this folder for mannequins. You can see it sits under content and there is a characters folder. So as long as I go and I paste that into that new project directory structure for, instead of third person, it'd be the first person, there will be a content folder. There should be a characters folder, but if there's not, you would need to make sure that you build a folder called characters and get the naming correct and make sure the capitalization is exactly the same. And as long as you do that and you place it in the same place within where we're looking at it in the content browser over here, it'll load into the project just fine, and the texture should load and everything will just work. So it's actually pretty cool how their directory structures are set up, and it's really easy to take assets and migrate them from one project to the other. So I'll go ahead and just minimize that. And I was going to show you with this in here. I'm going to close up the animations, and then on the mannequin, again, they've got the different animations, they've got the different materials that you can take a look at. And it's possible when you dig down in here and you find a material, and here's the mannequin, you usually can double click on this stuff and it will open up the correct editor for this. So we'll get into the material editor later, but this is the actual material for the mannequin character. And so there's that. The meshes, again, I was telling you that there is a skeletal mesh for this. It's got a skeleton to it. So if you double click on this mesh, it will open it up. And then this is the skeletal mesh viewer window. So you can take a look at the asset here. Again, as we look at all this stuff, I don't want you to get overwhelmed with the fact that there's so much to kind of take in and understand. I just want to show you the system. We'll start building with things, so don't get overwhelmed with that. But you can see here, this will probably be fun for you. We can actually take this mesh and we can just click and we can drag it into the world here. So here's the skeletal mesh for Manny, and here is the Quinn model. So they've got the male and the female model that are in here. And let's drag out a few more. I'll drag out Manny over here. So you just click it there. You got this here. And we will get into scaling and rotating and all that good stuff. Just going to introduce this all to you kind of slowly. So we've already looked at, we can hit Alt-P and we can play, or we can just hit this button and we can play. I'll just click and you can see that now we're actually taking stuff from the content browser and we're starting to populate some of those assets within inside of the world. I'll go ahead and hit escape to get out of there, just like that. And you can see what I was telling you about this rig. If we double click on this one, you can actually see what has been put together by the Epic team as far as a rig on this character. Now this stuff gets definitely very, very complicated. So again, I don't want you to get too overwhelmed looking at this material that you see within here. I just want you to know that it exists. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close that up, and we can go to the textures and we can open this up, and I'll go to the Manny, and you can see like this is the normal map, this is the albedo or the color map. This is considered a packed map where you have multiple maps that are packed in multiple channels on there. Yeah, and so we've got the Manny, we've got Quinn, and we've got some shared assets, and like you can see the Unreal logo. So if I double click on this, I can open this up and you can see, we can actually see this actual texture. If I went back to this one here and double clicked on this to see what the color map is, you can see when a 3D character actually has UVs on it and it takes that three-dimensional object and it lays it out flat, we can take our textures and we can build textures for that. So that's actually the head of the character. I believe that's probably maybe the arm. I'm not exactly sure. I know that's obviously the bottom of the foot. Pretty sure this is the leg, and we've got the pelvis somewhere in here. So there's the textures for that. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is this. Sometimes it might be difficult to find exactly what's going on here within the content browser. You do have these filters where you can come through here, and if I just click on this filter and I said, hey, I only want to find all the textures within here for that, and I could just look in characters, or if I went to content, now I could see all the different textures that exist within this entire project, right? If I went to this filter thing here, I could look at textures and materials, or maybe I just want materials, or maybe it's up to you if you want the meshes. So you get to build these combinations of what it is that you want to take a look at and what you want to see. You can do the reset filters if you want to do that. The other thing that you can do is if you know something, some part of the name within there, you can type that in. So if I start to type in Manny, I can find everything that is related to Manny. And let's just Unreal. Let's just try that. And actually, there's not that logo. I know there was a texture and it was shared. And I think I might be in the wrong place. There we go. So let's do Unreal. Nope. So let's see what we've got as far as texture, the shared texture. And actually, so they shortened the name, so UE. So if I did know that, then I would have been able to find the Unreal Engine logo for that. So you do have to know some part of the string of the text to be able to find it, but that does come in handy, and it does come in useful. So this other thing, if you are building with things in the world and you know, I really want to find the shape that was used to make all these different cylinders within here, wouldn't it be nice if we could just find this in the content browser and find exactly where that thing sits? Well, we can do that. So if we have it selected, hit Control B, and we'll go ahead and find it in the content browser. I showed you the mannequin model, the skeletal mesh viewer. Same thing for this. If we double click on this, it will open up the static mesh viewer, and we can take a look at that here. And again, there's certain things in here. If you wanted to see the UVs for it, if you want to be able to see some of the wireframes for it, you'd be able to do that within here. Let's close that up. And now that you have this part of the interface open and you can see these different shapes, this is where you just can start dragging some of this stuff out, and you start to have parts and pieces. I like to tell my students that imagine you have a Lego set, but instead of having a big bucket of Legos, you basically have one of these parts and you can just duplicate it as many times as you want. So it's really fun from a building standpoint. You saw what I just did there, where if I drag it out into the world, then I can just go ahead and hit delete if you want to delete it out of there. Something else to kind of note in here, I know we're talking about the content browser, but we might as well just at least acknowledge that we've got the outliner over here. So if you're a Maya user, or probably any other 3D program, you know that there's some type of outliner. It's just going to give you a list of all the different assets that actually exist within the world. And they've got this possibility to organize some of this stuff, and you can turn on and off the visibility of these parts and pieces. So it makes it nice to at least find all the things that exist within the world. And we'll keep learning about this. We'll do deeper dives into this stuff, but at least knowing exactly where that exists. Then as you have this selected in the outliner, you can see this is the details panel over here. So again, this is all the different things that you can do with this particular item that we have within here. So I did want to tell you about the possibility of you changing the order, the directory structure within here, or if you want to be more organized. So if we're in this level prototyping area, you can see we got these meshes. We do have these two cubes. So I think this would be a good example right here. We can just right click and we can say new folder. So that's how you add a folder to this section. And I'll just call this cubes like this. And this is how you move things. So it's possible you can do one at a time. You can hold down shift and you can move multiple things. If I select shift and do all these, I can move all these like this, right? So I'm just going to do one at a time and show you what this does. So I go to click and I drag it into this folder, and you can say it's going to give me these options. I could say move here. So we'll do move here. But what if I wanted to keep one here and actually move another one in here and basically duplicate the thing? If we click and drag and move it here, instead of do move here, you can copy here. And there are some advanced copy options that you could do within there. I really don't mess around with that too much. The only thing that I might do is probably copy something from one area. So I know it looks like we're just like doing a very simple move here, but it's possible that if you wanted to take this mesh out of the level prototyping area and you wanted for some reason to put it in the characters area, it's possible to move it there too. So there's no restrictions on exactly where you can move this thing to. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that there, right there like that. And if you have a folder, let's just make a new folder and call this temp like this. And if we want to delete this out of here, you should just be able to click it and hit delete and say delete folder, just like that. To actually do significant changes to the content browser structure, it's best practices to come back through here and then right click and say update redirector references. You run that, and if it finds any type of issues where you've copied something behind the scenes, this is stuff that Unreal needs to tidy up. It'll give you a little dialog box, and it makes it really easy for you to select that and tell it to clean the thing up. So again, this is after you do some pretty significant changes. You might want to just run that on there, and then you should have everything you need. It's pretty forgiving to be able to move things around within the content browser pretty freely. And it's really up to you to come up with your own naming conventions and where you store the files. So Unreal's made this very open-ended, so any team could come in and build the type of directory structure that they want for their team. Okay, now that we know how to get assets into the program using the content browser, let's take a look at doing some fun, interesting stuff where we can move things, we can scale things, and we can rotate things. So I'm going to hit Control B just to find this mannequin again. If you want to do this along with me, then I'm going to go ahead and take this this Manny Simple, and I'm going to drag in a new copy. I'm going to do something that I think is going to be kind of fun, and I'll just drag this off right in here. Remember, if we tap F, we can frame in on an object just like that. If we're using the Maya controls, holding down Alt and left click, we can just rotate around this thing. So we can tap Q, and if we tap Q, that is like the pick tool. And if let's go to the next one, let's do W, and that is the move tool. And if we go to E, we got the rotate tool. And if we do R, we've got scale. The other thing we can do is hit the space bar, and we can cycle through these different tools that we've got within here. And again, Q is pick, W is going to be the move tool, E we'll do rotate, and then R will be scale. And you might be asking yourself, why would they choose those funky letters? Because that doesn't really match up to rotate and maybe what I would think is like T for transform or something like that. This actually comes from Maya. So these are the hotkeys in Maya. They're the same in Unreal. And me being a Maya user, I guess I can defend this a little bit. If you take your hand and you put your pinky right on the Q and rest it on Q, W, E, and then R, it makes it easy to go from picking and then being able to switch between those different manipulators. So if you're wondering why do they do that? That's the reason why. So let's just put it on the rotate tool. Again, you might just find that you like the space bar and you like to spam the space bar to do it. That's up to you. So I'm just going to rotate this thing, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So as we rotate the things, you can see up within here, here's all the tools that I just showed you, right? Here is the pick tool, the select object tool. Here is the translation tool, rotation, and scale. They also have in here that you can move in world space, and then you can move in object space. So you can switch back and forth between the two of those. And you might be going, what does that mean? What are we doing here? So if I rotate this guy, like let's say 40 degrees, right? And if I put it on the move tool and I want to move him globally, like world aligned, so that's always a consistent X, Y, and Z value. Unreal is actually, I believe, a Z up world, and Maya was a Y-up world. So you'll get used to that. But anyways, know that we got a left and a right, front, back, top, bottom, right? And so we've rotated this character 40 degrees, but now I could either move the character in the world space or world aligned, but if I move the character in object space, you can see I'm going to move the character forward based off the character's orientation. Okay, so there's a little bit of that. I'll go ahead and just put this on to world here. We'll go ahead and put this on scale, and then let's go ahead and click and scale up. So it's possible that you can scale in the middle, and didn't mean to go negative with that. I'll hit undo. We could also do non-uniform scale on this as well, if you want to do something like that. Okay, so I'm actually just going to scale this up. I'm going to make some giant character within here, and I'll actually rotate this back and just make sure it's nice and straight within there. If we click it, you can see that we've got over in the details panel, this will be us starting to look at this. Here's the location in the world, right? And if you ever need to get something back into the what is the world origin, and I do this a lot, you might just go put your cursor here and then tab 0, tab 0, 0, right? So I've just zeroed out everything. And so if I knew I wanted this character to be right directly in the center of the world, here it is. But he's not on the floor, right? So let's just tab W. We're going to do this on the move tool here and move this up. Wouldn't it be cool if we could get this character to sit on the ground and not have to do anything to get it there? Well, let's try hitting the end key. And if we hit the end key, you can see it's going to try to, based off the collision of the character and the collision of the floor, it's going to try to place that character, right? So I'm just going to give this a whole number and make this 210, something like that. And if you do notice that something like, if it feels like the character is floating just a little bit, then maybe I put this at 205 or try 200. And you can keep messing around with the numbers until you get it where you want it to be. So let's try 195. That's a little bit too low. So 198, maybe it's somewhere in there. That's fine. I'm just going to make this an even 200, even if it floats just a little tiny bit on there like that. And again, we can always go play the game and then go within here. And I do think I understand what's going on here. So the player start, this thing that we have here, is actually having problems with the collision of this character because I made them overlap each other. So not a good thing. So I got two different things I can do. I can either take this player start location and I can move it forward like that, and now we play it, and now my character starts there. That's something that we could do. Now if you really want this to stay right where it's at, then it'll be there, right? Now if I want the player start to be where it's at here, I would need to take this character and I need to move that back just a little bit, just like that. Okay, and now I'm starting to understand why this character was floating. Let me go ahead and hit escape here, and let me explain to you what is happening. So I raised this up and I said, let's go ahead and hit end, and that will force it to the floor. And it's like, okay, but then this is like floating within here, right? So what is actually happening? What I actually did was this, that I have an item that is hidden. I don't know if you paid attention in the earlier parts, but then I accidentally hit this. Well, I did on purpose, hit this eye icon to show you that we can turn on and off the visibility, but I did forget to turn the visibility back on for that. So you can see then that could be a potential danger of that. So this is actually what we're seeing right now is in editor mode. And if we want to simulate like what we would see in game mode, you can tap G. So if we tap G, that takes us in and out of the game mode like this. So you can see all the manipulators are hidden and everything else like that, just like we would in game. So now I got a better idea of maybe what's going to be happening when I go into game. So I'm actually not the biggest fan of this location for this. So again, this is where we'll take the translation of this player start that exists within here. I'll just go add this right at the front. And then again, if I do this and I zero this out, just like that, and I'll leave this at 210 right there. We've got a new layout and we can play, and we've controlled the scale of this, and we've been able to rotate on there. Okay. All right. So we're going to play around with that just a little tiny bit. The next thing that I do want to show you is this, that whenever we move, by default, we are moving and we're snapping to a grid. So right now the grid snapping is turned on. If we want to turn that off, we can do that, and we can freely move things, but it's actually pretty beneficial whenever you're world building to leave this stuff on, especially if you've set up your meshes in a very particular way that it's predictable and you can link this wall to this wall. So I would probably leave that on. Now, what you might want to do is you might want to play around with the actual spacing of this. So if you go to this little drop down, you can see these are the increments that you can have snapping for. So if we want to go half of the 10 increments, we can do 5, or we can go all the way down to 1, which is really, really granular movement. But if we put this up to 100, you can see now whenever I move this, this whole big character moves over 100 units every single time I'm pushing this thing over like that. And we can go even larger with that. We could go to something like 500 within there. So you can see that we can do these larger moves. But usually if you have it on something like even 100, that becomes very predictable, and it makes it very easy to even manipulate really large objects and move those around like that. And likewise, when we are doing rotation, when we rotate the model, right now you can see that this is rotating, and it's every 10 degrees. It seems that it's rotating like this. So I'll go ahead and put this on here. And then we have rotation snapping turned on, and you can see it's set to 10 degrees. But if I wanted this to be much larger, and let's say we're just doing every 30 degrees like this, you could do something like that, right? So again, this is completely up to you what you want to do with these numbers, but then this makes it pretty easy for you to start to manipulate the objects in a way that becomes a little bit more predictable, depending on the scale that you're building with. That's going to do. It's either going to help you, or it might make your life a little bit more difficult. So you just need to know how to control the tools for the particular job you're doing. And just like what we're doing with scale, so we've got scale increments as well that we could scale by, right? So if I'm scaling this thing uniformly, and if I go this direction with the wrong way with it, and you can see that we could do something like that, or we could just put this down to 0.25. And let's make sure I'm on the center part here like that. So again, if it's beneficial to you, I think this stuff's on by default because it is beneficial for the most part. Maybe when it comes to organic creatures and characters and stuff like that, maybe it's not quite as helpful. But when we start manipulating forms like what we see here in the world, then it becomes definitely very useful for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and do just a little bit of world building together. So again, you can find this stuff by coming over the level prototyping area and go to meshes, or you could select something in the world. And remember, if we hit Control B, that will find that in the content browser for us. I'm going to use this SM_cube. And again, their naming convention that they use is SM stands for static mesh _cube. So I'm going to drag this out into the world, something like this. And then I want to make sure that I'm actually working with whole numbers on here. So it's actually drug out because we are snapping to the grid like we showed on here. And I'm using increments of 100 for this. So remember our hotkeys, if we tap Q, that's the pick, W, and then E, R, and T, or we can tap the space bar to cycle between these two different things, or three different things. So here's what I want to show you. We've got this one copy here. If we want to drag a copy while we move, hold down Alt and click and drag, and you will get a copy of the thing. So that comes in pretty handy, right? If I select both of these, I'll select this one, I'll hold down Shift and then select this. So I've got two objects selected, and I'll hold down Alt and I'll click and I'll drag this out just like that. Okay. So now what if I want to do this? I'll select all these, holding down Shift, hold down Alt, and I'll click and I'll drag up. And remember, this cube is a 100 units by 100 units by 100 units. So that equals 1 meter on the Unreal world. So pretty good sized cube. And I'm dragging up and I've got my snapping set to 100. So that's why whenever I drag up, it's just snapping right to the top of that. So if I want to get more granular with that, I can put it on 50. I might as well put it on 10. That way I can just freely move this stuff. And if I want to have these overlap, I could do that, right? So I've got these and I've grabbed those two. I'll grab these two, I'll hold down Alt and click and drag up. And then I'll just push this over just like this. And then let's do one, hold down Alt, click and drag up. And we got this over here. So we started to make quite a few different cubes. If we want to organize this stuff, I'm going to hold down Shift, select everything. You can see over here in the outliner what I'm actually doing. I'm selecting these different cubes that we've got. And it's possible that we could organize these into like a folder, and we can call this try structure, something like that, right? And it will put these things alphabetically. So if I collapse everything, hold down Shift and then open it, and then just let go and open it, I could either collapse everything or I could expand everything. So when you hold Shift, it will expand everything. If I hold down Shift and then open like this, it'll collapse everything. So again, I'll open it. If I hold down Shift and open it, it expands everything. And then if I just close it back up with Shift and then open it, it collapses everything to a smaller thing. So you can see we've got this folder structure here, right? We can turn the eye icon off. I do need you to be careful with this, because if we tap G for game mode and we turn the eye icon off, then it will hide it there. But take a look at this. So we'll hide it. Let's play in the game. And they're still there, right? So that was that problem I had with the floor. So just know that that's going to happen. This visibility thing is only visibility for the preview in the world as we're working in the editor. So if I open this up, if I take a look at each one of these objects, this is where we can get into the details panel a little bit. And this is where it's nice and Unreal. If you know what you're looking for, we're really looking for visibility, and we're looking for visibility and under the rendering section. So we've got this thing where it's visible, so we can turn it on and off, and it's going to be not visible in the editor. But if you want to hide this in game, you actually have to click this and say hide in game. So let's turn the visibility on, so it's visible. I'm going to have to tap G for that. And then now it's visible in the editor, but then when I go to play, that item should be hidden. Okay. So that's the way that you're able to control the visibility of these things, depending on if you want to see it in the editor or not. And again, let's find rendering. And sometimes I get a little bit lost in here. There's a lot. So yeah, so it's visible, and then we do actor hidden in game. So we could select all of these, and then we say same thing. We would need to go to the rendering component, and then we need to say actor hidden in game. You saw that there was a weird little half line. That's saying that one of the objects, like we've got a bunch of them selected, and one of them's got a different value than everything else. You can also click this reset button right here. So if you want to reset all of them, you can do that. Okay, so let's go to play, and now everything's working as expected within through here. Let's do this next thing. So I could go through, we could select all these like we're doing. What I can do though is we could use our folder structure that we've got. So let's get this folder structure, and if we right click on it, we can say that we want to select all descendants. And if we do that, it's going to select everything in the folder for us. So that might be another reason for organization on this stuff, is to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So it's possible that we could hold down Alt and we could drag this thing out, and we got a copy of everything. Okay. I am going to do that, and I'm going to show you this next part. So if we hit Control G, we can group things. So if we hit Control G, we're grouping it. That would be the same thing as if we would have selected this and gone and then right-clicked on it. And if we go to groups, you can see that there's the possibility to group, or now that it's grouped, we can say ungroup. So if I ungroup it, obviously it's going to turn it back into those separate little objects that we had before. But what if we want to do this? I'll show you this edge case, okay? So now, this is cool. We've got a group, and now to play around with the group, now we just select the group very easily versus these individual blocks, right? So now I can just duplicate this group again, and then this time we're going to manipulate it, and I'm going to put it on the rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then we got something like this. Okay, and I'm just going to push this back right here, so we're snapping. We've got it snapped to 10 increments, so it's real easy for us to snap this thing up, just like that, right? And then on this one, I'm going to drag out a copy, holding down Alt, like that. And then now I want to change the structure of this one. I want this one to look a little bit different. So if we right-click on there, if you go to the Group section, you remember you can ungroup it, and if we do that, then we've got full control over what we do with it. We would have to group it again, but we can unlock it. If you notice, the color of this changes to this red color, and that change to the red color is just letting us know that it's unlocked, and now we can actually take these pieces and we can manipulate them, and we can do something different with it. So I'm going to just try to change this up quite a bit so you can easily see the difference between the different versions. When we're ready, we can just right click on there and go to groups, and we can say lock, and then we'll just lock that right back up, just like that. So now here's where we get to try out the changes that we made. We're going to go ahead and play this, and we're going to go ahead and move around in here, and then we can go in between stuff and check it out, and we can start jumping on things and seeing how things actually play and work from a gameplay standpoint, or from a layout standpoint. Yeah, so this is the power of the engine right here, is just being able to quickly be able to do those edits, try it out, test it out, and see how that's working. So something I need to point out about this groups is if you ever go to delete the entire group, you can just select it, hit delete, and it will go through each one of these objects that exist within the group. If you want to delete the entire thing, just hit apply to all and click delete, and you can delete out the entire group. So that's what we could do with the groups section. Let's take a look at how we can use these few shapes that we have and use them in combination with each other and try to build something just a little bit more interesting. So we do have this static mesh cylinder. So again, I'll place it in the world, and I'll try to get this to be a number, something like this. Let's do 60 right there. I don't think it's like super crucial. We'll figure things out as we go. So I can push this within here on the spacing of the floor. I'll hold down Alt, and I'll drag out a copy of this, and I'll just make this into a pillar, something like that. And I think I'm going to go one more higher, just because if we are actually going to play this, we can take a look and see if the character can easily fit through that section. And that seems to work pretty good, like that. I'll go ahead and do this. So we already know that we can click and drag out an object, and if we try to place that square, we'll get roughly in the right position. If we've already got an object like this, it's possible that we can hold down Alt and we can drag a copy, just like we've been doing, but we can actually replace that object with a different object. So you see I've got this selected in the world. Down here in the content browser, I have the cube selected. So it's possible that I can right click on this object, and then we can say replace selected actors with, and you can see I want to replace it with this SM cube. So here it is, it's replaced. Now, the reason why it shifted is because this object has a different pivot point than this object. It did replace it replaced it in the same spot, but because these objects have different pivot points, it looked like it shifted to us, right? So I'm just going to push it here and I'm going to push it right there, and it should sit directly on top of this thing. So now I can hold down Alt, I'll drag out another copy and push it over here for this pillar that we see here, like that. And then I'm going to drag out a copy here and here, like this. And I'm going to swap this out with this, this ramp shape that we've got. So again, I have this selected. I have this down here. I'm going to right click and say replace selected actors with, and let's make sure I've got it on there. Replace actors with this ramp right here, static mesh, just like that. Okay. And so I'm just going to rotate this thing, hit the space bar, and I'm rotating like this. And I'll take this and I'll hit the space bar, get the move tool, hold down Alt, and then click out a copy of this. Accidentally move that, not sure, so I'll just tap F. And hit undo again. Getting a little too squirrely with my mouse here. Hold on Alt, I'll drag out this. And now I got this structure. I think that looks pretty cool. So let me select these two pieces and drag out a copy. I'll hold on Alt, drag out a copy. And I'm just going to rotate this like here. And you can do that. Okay. So that's one way of doing it. Let me show you a different way of doing this. If I select these and we drag out a copy like we've been doing, it's possible that we can mirror objects. So if we right click over our objects and then we take a look at under transform, there is a mirror these different axes, right? And you see this little icon down here. We can figure out which way we want to mirror based off this thing. So it looks like I want to mirror along the X axis. And so if I do that, you can see it just mirrors it like that. And I can push this shape over there like that. So that comes in handy when we've got symmetrical designs and we want to duplicate things. I think I'm going to take one of these shapes. I'm going to move it here and I'm going to rotate this right here like that. I'm going to rotate this copy and I'm going to push this over here just like that and push that there. And let's just check out the work. Let's go ahead and play. And we're going to move around and through here and then check that out. So I think that looks pretty cool. And I would like to turn that into an object that I could reuse over and over again. So what I'm doing is just selecting all the different objects. And again, if you hold down Shift, you should be able to select multiple objects. If you ever need to deselect objects, you can hold down Control and then click off of them, and you can see I'm deselecting these objects that we have here. So holding down Shift, I'm just adding to the selection, and Control will actually take away from the selection. So I just want to make sure I have all my parts and pieces. One way to test this out is just to grab the entire group like we see there and make sure we can move that. Something else to note is whatever the last object that you select is actually going to give you your pivot point. So if we hold down Control and select this, if I hold down Shift and now select it, so Control deselected it, I'll hold down Shift and select it, you can see the pivot point for this entire group right now is now at that last object that we selected. So that might be something useful for you to take a look at. So this is all working. It's moving together as one object. What if I want to save this thing together? There's a process that you can do where you can actually go to under actors, and then you could say merge actors, and we can go say merge. So let's do that, and it'll ask you, where do you want to save this new model? So we're under the level prototyping. Let's go to the meshes area. And what I want to do is it's telling this name that it was going to give us is just way too long. So I'm just gonna call this door frame, something like that, and go ahead and save it. and you can see it's going to make a new object for us. We can keep the old object in the world just like that. If you want to get rid of it, everything's selected. So I just can hit delete and delete the thing. And now when I drag this thing in, you can see here's the object that we have right here like that. Now the thing is, we just drug this thing in, and it would be nice if the pivot point of this thing actually made some sense to us, right? So it put the, I'm not exactly sure why, it put the pivot point somewhere within through here like that. So let's take a look at how we can fix that. And in order to do that, we need to go out of this mode that we're in, which is this selection mode, is what they call it. And there's a completely different mode for modeling. So they're opening up a whole lot of interesting tools within inside the program to do modeling type of tasks directly in the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the modeling tab that you see right here. And let's go to this X-form section right there. And let's click this edit pivot. And it's going to allow you to move it around, but it also has some preset stuff. So if we put it in center, we can do that. If we put it on bottom, that's really where I want it. But it's possible that you could actually manipulate the where this thing sits. It is snapping to the grid for us. And as soon as it's done, you hit accept, and it actually bakes it in there. We haven't talked about saving objects yet or anything like that. This little asterisk sign that you see down there, this is a good time for us to talk about it. We need to save this object. We made an object. We took all those different objects we had in the engine. We merged them together, but then now we got this object. We just controlled the pivot point of it. So it would be nice of us to be able to hold on to that. So let's just right click on it, and all you have to do is say save. And so it's going to actually save it on your local hard drive. Remember the directory structure that we talked about? This is actually going to sit there. So anytime, again, just to go over this, right click on there, and we can say that we can show and explore. We can find that option within there, and you can see that this is now this static mesh _ door frame .uasset. So we just created an Unreal asset using the program. So the cool thing about this is now we've got that as an object. We can start to play around with this as like architectural elements within our scene. And so I'll just drag out another copy of this here, and I'll start to rotate it 90 degrees, something like that. Push that right here like this. And I actually want to get this right next to here. I want to see what this looks like when we run around, if I can get this to match up a little better and make it feel like these are interlocked in a way. So I'll hold down Alt and drag out a copy of that. And then now let's just go ahead and play and run around. Okay, that's pretty cool. So now that we know quite a bit, I'm going to add another little element for you. You can see this window that we're playing in is a little bit small. If we hit F11 on our keyboard, we can go into a full screen mode. And I know my taskbar is hidden from you, but it's possible that we can play in a true full screen mode and not see the Windows taskbar at the bottom. So F11 takes you in and out of this full screen mode, and if you want to hide the taskbar, add the Shift modifier and do Shift F11. So Shift F11 will bring up and down the taskbar, and then now I'm playing in a true full screen mode, and I can get the full experience of what would this be like if I actually published this as a game. Like what would it look like on a full screen monitor? So that's pretty cool to be able to preview that and then just hop back out of there. So again, Shift F11 will bring back the taskbar. And if I hit F11, I can go just play and run around in the normal mode that we're in. And if we want to escape out of there, we can just hit escape. So I want to show you some creative ways of duplicating objects, especially if we're going to do something in a rotational type of fashion. And I'm going to show you some of the drawbacks of some of the things that we've looked at so far. So we've already looked at how we can group things. And if we take these two objects and we hit Control G, like we've looked at, and we group that, it's going to put the pivot point right in the center of the world, or between these two different objects. Because this is symmetrical right now, this is actually working rather well. I'm going to hit undo for that. So the problem lies within this. If I wanted to do a duplicate of these two objects and these characters at the same time, and then I group this, the pivot point is not going to be quite centered. And that's because the bounding box of this is not like a perfect shape. You can take a look if we come up here at the top and we imagine a bounding box around this selection. This is heavier on this side than it is on this side. So that produces a pivot point that is not exactly centered. It's off-centered just a little bit. So how can we work around this? We could do something like this. We can actually take another object, and I was going to take one of these cubes. It doesn't really matter. It could be the cube, it could be the cylinder. Any one of these objects, I'm going to just throw it into the world. And then I'm going to take the location, I'm going to zero this out. So I'm going to do 0, 0, 0 for that right there. And I'm just going to raise it up to make it a little bit easier to select. Okay. So now if I select this and I select the cube, let's do this here. I just want to take this and ungroup it just to show you that these are individual objects and this will work. It would work if I just did that group like I was showing you, but this will also work if we take the characters and these pillars and everything's separate, right? We just need to make sure that the cube is the last thing that we select. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select that. And you can see now that becomes the pivot point of whatever this group is. And so we can freely move this stuff. So if you just want to rotate it, you're good to go and you can just rotate that. But if we want to duplicate this thing, I did change the snapping increments to 5. I'm going to do a 45 degree and a 45 degree, and I want to do duplicates of it. So I could put that on 45 degrees, but I want a little more control with this 5 degree. So if you remember, when we move things, if we hold down Alt, just like when we move things, we can actually rotate. And if we hold down Alt, we can drag out a copy of this, and I want to make sure I'm on 45 degrees for that, and then I'll hold down Alt and then click out and drag another copy. This will be another 45 degrees, and then hold down Alt and then click and drag out, and I'll do another 45 degrees like that. And so now we've built, you know, quite a few different pieces, and they're all symmetrically in this nice radial format. Now we don't really need any of these cubes anymore, so we can just select them and get rid of them. I would have to continue to work on what I've got going on here for the mannequins. I'm not really super happy with what was produced with that. So let me get back here because I do want one of these right here. Just like that. And I think what I would like is I'm going to do this cube again. And then I'm just going to do this, put a 0, 0, 0 like this. I'll just raise it up just like that. And I want these to look like 2 guards at each one of these stations. So I'll select the cube as the last thing, tap E so it's on the rotate tool, and then hold down Alt, and then I'll drag out and I'll make sure that this is a 90 degree. Hold down Alt, drag out for a 90 degree, and then Alt, and then drag out for another 90 degree. And then I've got the placement of my different characters that I want. And again, I can just get these cubes and delete them away. And now I'm good to go for something like that. And I want to build myself a nice little camera shot. So I'm just going to stage this up for something that I think might look kind of cool. So I'll hit, for me, I'll do Control-6 because I've got a few different bookmarks. Now I might as well evaluate the different bookmarks that I've got. So I'm tapping 1, 2, 3, 4, and you might get in this situation where after you do a little bit more work to your little world that you're creating, maybe some of those shots don't really hold up that well anymore. So for me, I'm just going to take my my camera and I'm going to readjust some of this stuff to where I think it has a nicer layout. So now I'm going to hit Control 1 for this, and that will actually override that. So I'll tap 2, and I've got this shot here, and I just think that this could be a little more interesting if we did something like this. So I'll tap 2 for that, Control 2, and I'll tap 3. Nothing's really changed with that shot. 4, this looks a little odd to me right now, so I'm just going to push this maybe up like this a little bit so we can see a little bit of this like giant character and then the rest of them. So that's 4. Now this shot definitely looks odd. I think to fix this one, I'm probably going to just lower the camera down here like that. So hit Control 5, and then we got 6. So now I've very quickly changed the world. I think it looks a little bit more interesting, and I was able to take the pre-existing camera shots that I had before and re-update that. And then I think you should always try to play the results of what you've laid out and how that feels. Okay, so I think that's pretty cool. It's got more of a nicer aesthetic look, and I like the symmetry that's on here. But that's a workaround for you to where you could build things that are more symmetrical and you're doing more of a radial type of design. So let's go ahead and talk about saving on our map. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and talk about saving our map. So you probably noticed, just like any other application, you go up to the upper left-hand corner, you can go File, and you say Save All or Save Current Level, right? But I might want to give this thing a custom name, and I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to give my own level my own name, and I'm going to say File, Save Current Level As, and it's going to show you where this current level sits, and you do have the opportunity to make a new directory structure for yourself. I might suggest that under content, I like to do something like this, where you go to content, you can right click and you just say new folder, and you can call this maps or you can call them levels. It's really up to you what you want to do. I usually call this maps, and then I might call this my third person, my custom third person map. Something like that, right? It's up to you, whatever you want to name this, but I'm going to give it a custom name, okay? So pretty easy. The thing is, whenever we load up the Unreal Engine, if we shut the Unreal Engine down, it will not open this map by default. There is a default map that is associated with the project, and we would need to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you those options. So we're going to go to Edit, and we're going to go to Project Settings and open that up. And if you take a look over here, there's a Maps and Modes, and we can come here and you can see that the Editor Startup map is the level third person that we've been working on. I just saved this new map though, so let's go ahead and find my custom third person map, and then that's going to be the Editor Startup map, and then we also have the Game Default map. So I'll just change both of them on there like that, and I'll go ahead and close it. And I'll tap G and then just kind of get this thing staged up. And then I'm just going to hit save for that. And if things worked correctly, we should be able to shut down the engine. And if we take a look at the Epic launcher now, whenever we go to the launcher, the next time we come back, this icon that you see here should be updated. So I'm just curious, if we close the launcher and then we do the launcher again, that icon is not updated just yet. So I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. I'm going to shut down Unreal and then load up the launcher and see what that looks like. Okay, so I shut down Unreal and then open up the launcher, and you can see that the icon, like I was telling you, should update for you, and it should give you, like, whatever the last thing it is whenever you saved and closed the project, it's going to generate a thumbnail for you. So now I could just double click on this, and it should open up the engine for me, and then it should take us straight to that map that we were working on and that we were using to build, and we should be good to go. And it might take just a little bit of time to start up and compile some shaders. So I'll pause it. Okay, here we are on Unreal, and it didn't really take very long for the shaders to compile and build, but it did take a little bit of time. The bigger your project is, that time factor might go up for you. So there you go. There is a quick overview of basically how we can get into the engine. We can move around, we can duplicate objects, we can group things, we can build combinations, we can start to lay out a map, change our different camera views and our bookmarks for things, and make a custom map for ourselves. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good stopping point right now, just to kind of reflect on some of the things that we've done. And when we kick the video back up, I'm going to start to show you some different things with materials and things that we can do with blueprints to even drive the complexity of the scene even more, so we can make it a little bit more elaborate. And yeah, we're going to just have a whole lot of fun just using some of the different features within the program to make this level a little bit more complete. Okay, now that we know some of the basics of Unreal, let's start looking at a little bit more advanced topics. So I want to talk to you about materials right now. I'm going to go and make a custom folder for ourselves. And so I'm going to go under Content right here, and I can either right click in this area and say New Folder, or I could come right here and say New Folder. So that's going to make a new folder, and then I'm just going to call this Custom Materials. Let's just double click and go into the custom materials folder, and then let's right click, and we've got a bunch of different options for things that we can create. You'll see that there's a materials icon right here. Go ahead and click that, and that will make our first material. The Unreal naming convention, whenever they make materials, they call it M underscore, and then whatever you want to call this thing. I'm going to call this a master material. Like this, go ahead and hit enter, and then this creates our material. If you double click on this material icon, it will open up the material editor. And this is the first time we're taking a look at this, but we can drag this around right here. You can drag the corners within through there, just like that. And to navigate in here, if you right click, you get to push around the area that we're going to be building. We're going to be building over here, and everything that we do kind of flows into these inputs that we have over here. If you do the scroll wheel, then you can zoom in and out for that. Okay, so because we're new to this, I'm going to show you just some very simple ways of getting this stuff plugged in. So we can right click over these pens right here and say promote to parameter. And I'm going to be showing you how to make this master material. And with this master material, we'll be able to make material instances from this. So material instances are basically like, think of copies of this, but we get to change the parameters on there. So once we get a base color on here, you can see this is got red, green, blue, and then red, green, blue all put together, put out. We've got this connection going to the base color. We can double click on this and we can change this color, and we can make it red. You can do whatever you want with it, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll leave the color red just like that. And Unreal, because we asked this to promote this to a parameter, it went ahead and made it for us. Let's do this again with metallic. Let's just right click and see what this is. Right click, say promote to parameter. It fills in the name for us, and the default value for metallic would be 0. If it was a value of 1, then that means it's going to be fully metallic or not. Okay, you can see the difference between these nodes that it created. This is a constant vector 4, so this has got 4 different values on there: red, green, blue, and alpha on there. And if you put RGB together, those are 4 different values, but then this RGB is 3 different values. So I know this might sound a little confusing at the beginning, but it's possible to use this color node as a way to drive 3 different values if you wanted to. You could actually drive 4 different values with this. It just happens to be what is used for being able to select colors and things like that. So you could either think of it as a color or you could think of it as data. This one only has one singular value. There are some hotkeys in here. So if you hold down 1 and click, you can get a constant of single value like this. And if I type in constant and then like this, we can get a constant, which we just made, or we can do a constant 2 vector, 3, 4. And so if we hold down 1 like this, we get this. If we hold down 2, we get this. If we hold down 3 and click, we get this. If we hold down 4, we get this. So there's different ways. If you know the hotkeys, you can actually create some of this stuff very quickly and very easily. If I type in constant again, you can see I could either find a constant 1 or 2, 3, or 4, just like that. And so I just want you to know behind the scenes what it's doing when it creates these things, okay? So the other thing that's probably important about this, you can see here's the same thing that we've got for this color node here, but you can see there's no name to it. When we go to make the material instance, if you want to make this stuff parameterized where you can change the values, you have to tell Unreal to change these nodes for you. So we can right click in there, you can say convert to parameter, and then now on this one, maybe I type in emissive color for this, right? And I take this and I plug it into emissive color. Now, if I wanted this thing to glow or have some kind of a color like this, I could do this. I will go ahead and take the value. I'll just crank it up. Let's do something crazy like 200, and then it'll really make it look like it's glowing through there. And to unhook this, I'll just hold down Alt and click on that. So you can see it's possible that we can have Unreal create these values for us, or we can do it. So this is how we did it all by ourselves. Hold down 4, click on that, right click, convert to a parameter. Or I can just right click on here and say promote to parameter. And it's already going to name it whatever that slot is for me. So I just think that way is a whole lot easier. If we do the same thing for specular, let's right click on there and say promote to parameter. You do have to pay attention to what that default value was, which for this, it was 0.5. Like this, let's go here, 0.5. Just like that. And then roughness, you can see by default, they put roughness at 0.5 as well. So let's right click in here and say promote to parameter. And now we've got something for roughness. And I'm going to put this at 1. Let's put that at 1 right there. So look at the values of this. If we take this and we make this value 0 for roughness, it is going to look like glass because there's no roughness on the surface. If we go to something like 0.45, you can see it looks something, maybe it looks a little bit more like plastic. If we start going up higher with that number to like 0.8, maybe it looks like a matte wall. And then if you put it all the way up to 1, then there's no specularity that exists on this object at all. I'm going to put this down to like 0.35, somewhere right around in there. It's got a nice specular value to it. And I'm going to take these and I'm just going to just grab them and hit delete like that. Okay. So I'm just right clicking and moving, and we can remember the scroll wheel. We can move this around. If you click these, you can just click and drag them so we can rearrange them. So I might give a little bit of breathing room for this, so it's real easy to see what's being plugged into what, like that. And if you want, we can grab everything. So we just drag a marquee and we can move this around like that. Okay, so this is just a simple, basic material. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And then after that, it's compiled, and I'll just save that. And we have now a master material. So it's possible that we can take this material and we could drag it, and we could drag it onto one of our objects that we have here, like that. If we take a look at our object, what we really did was, if we select it over in the details panel, you can see that there's a material slot for this. If you've made multiple material slots from a different application like Maya, Blender, or something like that, you might see multiple sections on here for materials. So maybe in Maya, I made the top to where this could be a material, and then these side pillars could be a material. So you're able to plug in materials that way. So as we drug this on top of this, so you can see this one right now has got this default like grid material on it. And you can see if I drag this in here, just like that. I can override that, and now we have our new material assigned with this. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to show you now how to take this very simple material that we made, and we're going to make a material instance out of it. So just take the material, right click on it, and say create material instance right here at the top. So we've got that now, and it's going to give us a new name, right? So now this is called m_master material instance. I don't really want that, so I'm just gonna go in here to change the name, and because I want this to be, let's make this green. I'll just make this m green instance like that. Okay, now obviously it doesn't look green, but let's go ahead and assign this to this pillar here, and you can see that it's actually assigned. We can see it right here, but nothing's going to change, right? This material instance has all the same values from the master material. Let's take a look at how we can change those parameters that we made. So we double click on this and it opens this up. So if we look at the master material, let's have this open, and I can slide this over. Here's our master material, and here's our material instance. So you can see clearly like what the difference is between these two. If we take a look at the parameter group and open this up, these are the different values that we've parameterized for ourselves. Let's take a look at the first one, base color. If we want to change that, click this little box right here, and now we can actually go and we can change the value from red to green right on here. And I need to get rid of the red. So if I want it full green, I can do something like that. You might notice that this is actually changing the values of this object, and it's live. So this is really, really cool. It takes a little bit of time to set up a master material, and the material instance, but once you have it made, it's very easy to tune these values, and you get to basically do it in real time. If I come over here to the master material area and I try to do that work here, then it takes time for it to compile and see the changes. We have to basically do the changes. We click apply and then maybe save. Either way, it's going to take some time to compile that thing. So now I've got access to the emissive color like we did. I can do the roughness. So this will be kind of fun. Let's see if we can get to the top of this and we can see the specularity of this a little bit more like this. This is where it makes it a whole lot easier for you to probably see what is really going on with these values. So if I put this down to something like 0, like that, it's going to look a bit more like I'd say like glass, right? And more highly reflective. And if we take this metallic value and put that at 1, now we've made this metallic type of shader. From everything that I understand, you're either supposed to make metallic 0, so something's either metallic or it's not. If you want to do something that's more stylized, you can do in between values. So you just go ahead and play around with that. You might get some weird lighting values and things like that if you start to mess with that, but it's really up to you. It's at your discretion what you'd want to do with this on here. And specular, if we overdrive that, you can maybe make the specular value go up a little bit, but usually you're just going to leave this at 0.5. If you want to kill it, you can see you can put it at 0 and it's going to kill all the specularity. Or you want to maybe cut this in half. So it's a way of like lessening the specularity if you want. So I just would probably leave that at 0.5 right there like that. I did want to show you this material, and I want to show you what it looks like whenever we apply it to something that has beveled edges, because this is this perfect CG edge and it's not catching any light. So it's maybe a little bit difficult to see some of the changes that we are making to this. Before I show you a different object, you can see that anytime it says that we need to save, you're going to get this little asterisk. So we just need to right click on here and we can say save, just like that. And we've saved it. You can do that at the end of the session, but you run the risk if anything happened with your session that maybe Unreal crashes and then you lose some of your work. It will try to save it for you with the auto saves, but it's best if you can just start to get in the habit of saving some of your work. So what I was going to do is go to this level prototyping, and under meshes, they've got this static mesh chamfer cube. And on that one, they've got rounded corners on there. So I'll just throw this in here like this. I'll drag it up just like that. And again, there's multiple ways that we can get this material on here. We've got our custom materials area. We could drag it in. We could drag it into this slot right here. But it's also possible that you could dig through and you could look at all the different materials that actually exist within the engine and everything that's available to you. And if you know the name that you're looking for, M_green, like this, you'll be able to find it and you could assign it that way as well. So like I was saying with this, with these rounded corners, it might make it a little bit easier for us to see some of the changes that we were doing on some of this stuff. So if I go and I make this roughness value 0, metallic 1, something like that, you can really see this curvature stuff helps on the edges of that. And let's just see if we want to make it darker, or we can push it lighter within through here. So you can see if I push it to a white color, it becomes more looking like chrome. If I push it there versus completely dark, we can get chrome that's fully chrome, or we can start to tint that towards a dark color right there like that. So I'm just going to put this at 0. Let's go put this roughness back. Maybe I'll do 0.35, somewhere like this. I'll put the base color back to just green, just like we had it before. And then we could take a look at this emissive color. So if we push this and we started to make it like an orange kind of color, we could do that. I can tint it towards red if we wanted. And again, we can overdrive this value that exists down here. And for emissives, if you really wanted to make it feel like it's glowing, we need to get that value up something higher. So you can see I'm using a value of 20. Now, this version of Unreal has real-time global illumination. So you can see when I actually crank up the values of this emissive, it starts to act like a light. So this is a really cool feature. The only problem right now is the time of making this. It can make your maybe images a little bit more noisy. This just keeps getting better and better over time whenever the compute power is getting better with the graphics cards. So it is possible that you could do some fake lighting with this stuff like this, but you might just be a little bit cautious with what you do with this. Really, to kind of tone down on maybe potential noise in your image, you could do this as an effect where you put just enough glow in there to where it looks good. And then after you've got the look established, then you would come over here to your lighting, and then you might add a point light in that area, and you might start to actually light that part of the world with things. Okay, so that's going to show you just a little bit about the different ways of doing material instances. Let's just go ahead and save all of our work right now. And what I want to do is this. I want to continue to make a few more of these. I'm going to just right click on here, say create material instance, and then I want to call this like an orange instance like this. I'll go ahead and assign it to this pillar here. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making myself a little library of different materials. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push the hue slider right around in this area right here. And I think maybe 0.3 feels like pretty good for that. And again, I can always check this out by doing this here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm also going to do this. We can right click on here and we could just say duplicate. So let's say we liked most of the values of this, but this time I'm going to do this right here where I'm going to call it mid-gray. And then get rid of that one at the end here. And then on this one, I'm just going to go ahead and assign it right to this one here. And the advantage of duplicating it is all this stuff is turned on. I have the same parameters. And what if I was like, the only thing I want to change about this is I want to get rid of the saturation on this. So I want to keep it about the same value that it was, maybe somewhere around in there. Maybe I'll drop it down just a little bit right in here. And I'll go ahead and hit OK for that and save it. And so now I very quickly took this orange material and kept all the specular values and everything, reflection values. The only thing I wanted to do was change this this value on there for that. So let's go ahead and duplicate this again. And this one I will call this dark gray. Get rid of the number 1 at the end of that. And I'll go ahead and assign it to an object so I can just see what's going on with it. I'll double click this one. And then what I will do with this is just go to the base color and just going to darken that up a bit more on here like that. 0.125, I think that feels pretty good like that. And let's go ahead and make one more. Let's right click on here and say create material instance. And then I'm going to call this black. Like this. I got a black instance. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this to here. And I'm just going to make this a bit darker on through there. And I think what I might have actually done is I'm going to get rid of this one. And let's save this. It's possible to create an instance of an instance, and that gets a little bit weird where you change the instance and it pushes the child and it does all the changes to the child. You might want that, but in this case, I just want separate materials from each other. So let me just make sure I'm duplicating this thing, and then let me call this a different name, and just to be sure I'm not doing anything funky with this. Oops, let's grab that right there. Okay, and let's push this darker here. Hit OK with that. And then this one is dark gray, and this one was a little bit too dark, so I'll raise that up right there. And you can see I need to save these. Right click and I'll just say save. Right click and I'll say save. And we're starting to build ourselves a nice little library. And now aesthetically, I can start to choose what makes sense for me and what do I want to do with these different materials. I think I want this red, and I'm probably going to put just a mid-gray, or actually this mid-gray. I'll put that on most of my pieces like that. I think aesthetically that'll look a little bit nicer. I'm having trouble getting to that, so I just had to fly over to that area. Okay, we're close with this. Let's go ahead and assign that. And then I'm going to try something a little bit darker for some of these shapes that are right here. And maybe that draws our attention to the center part of this. Just like that. Getting closer here. And I think I want to make at least one emissive material for this. So I think that looks pretty cool. I want to draw attention to this platform that we got going on here. So I actually want to make an orange glowing material. So I'm just going to take this orange instance and then right click, and I'm going to duplicate that. And then this, I'm going to do orange and call it glow. Go to the end and get rid of that one. And I should be able to assign this right here to that. Double click and open this up. And let's do our emissive color. Now it's possible that I could even pick this color that exists on here, just like that with the color picker, or you could pick colors from the world. And again, with this emissive color, if we really want this glow factor to go up, we can take that and we can make it a much higher value, something like that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save the work just like that. Hit escape, and then let's even play and move around the world and see what that looks like and how it feels. I'm just going to do a little trick for this cube that we got. I'm going to hit escape real quick, and I'm going to select it, and we're going to go to the physics, and then we can say simulate physics, and we'll say what is the mass of this thing, and let's just leave it at the default right there, what it is, and see what this does at this point. If we move this, now we can actually take this cube and kind of move it around. So that's interesting, and that's kind of fun. You know what? As I'm moving around the world, and I've got this grid pattern up, because we've got more materials now, I do want to see if maybe what this might make things look like if we filled this here, and we're actually making these a little bit darker. So again, this is where I think it becomes pretty interesting and fun, is where you get to start playing around with some of the material values, and you start to see the aesthetics of things, and you start to play around with the design a little bit, right? And you can start to change the feeling of whatever this map is by doing this a little bit. Okay, and I might just drag out a copy of this and a copy of this and push this up real quick, and then push this here. And I do believe, because I'm duplicating it, it should have the physics is already turned on for it. So if I just take this, and I want to rotate by this here, this last object, and just rotate 90 and save that. And so once we've got everything set up, let's just go ahead and, again, you can hit the play button, or you can just hit Alt-P, and we can just play this, and we can take a look at the results. Don't forget that you can hit F11, and we can do a full screen mode, and we can check out things that way. So I think everything's looking pretty interesting from a visual standpoint. And now we've got ways to color code things to make things draw attention even more to the audience or to the player from a visual standpoint or from a gameplay standpoint. All right, so try these different methods with what we just learned about materials. We've got a very simple setup. We're not doing anything extravagant, but it's at least an introduction to the system, and it'll let you play around and come up with your own colors and aesthetics for things. So I want to switch over and show you the power of using blueprints. So there's lots of different use cases for blueprints. Blueprints can be this area for visual scripting language, and it's possible that you can make full games with using blueprints, but really that's not the thing that I want to show you right now. What I want to show you is that it's possible to use blueprints in a way, and you can call them prefabs. That's like the old thing that they used to call this, but basically think if we made an object like a container, and we said we want to do something with it. So we're going to make a box, and we're going to call that our container for making a little building. And once we have this blueprint set up, you can add models to it, you could add sound effects, you could add particle systems, like everything can be contained within this one blueprint. You can even have logic for it. So like, could we walk into the building or could we not walk into the building? So there's a lot that we can do with it, but I want to use it and show you, just introduce you to the tool and have you understand it as a building tool. Something that we can use to fill out the space in our environment. And then over time, we can refine this and it can get better and better. So we always see the level kind of update that way. So let's take a look at this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new custom folder for myself in the content area. So we can just click here. Again, there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. I'll just go to content, I'll right click, and we'll just say new folder. And let's just call this custom building. You can name this thing whatever it is that you want to name it. Let's go ahead and double click into the folder, and then we've got a new area that we can start building with things. And I'm just going to right click on here, and I'm going to say blueprint class. So we're going to go ahead and make a blueprint. And the type that we want for this is we're going to use an actor class. So there's all kinds of different blueprints that you can build within here. You can see there's stuff for pawn, players, characters, stuff like that. But we just want a group of actors. So we're going to do the actor class, and then it's going to make this new blueprint. Naming convention for this, I'm just going to follow what Epic does. I think it works rather well. So do BP underscore, and let's just say custom building. Just like that, okay? So let's double click and go into this blueprint. You can see that there is the viewport. This is, if we put a model in here, whatever we're gonna add to this, this is where we can see that stuff. The construction script is any type of scripting that you need before the game actually starts at creation time. You wanna do that in the construction script area. And then this event graph is different logic that we can build and we can put within here to make things happen. So again, we could make this really, really crazy, and you can interact with things. And like I said, you can go up to doors and make doors open. There's all kinds of things you can do with this, right? But I want to use this as a container to build a building and then put that into the world and see it progress over time. So there's different ways that we can do this. I want to pull this off to the side just so we can see a little bit of our world and still see this at the same time. And let me pull this down right here like that. I'm going to go here in the viewport area. We might as well go to the level prototyping area. We've already got some meshes in there, and we got a cube. Let's go ahead and click and drag this. We can either drag it in here or we can drag it here. So either one. Okay. I do know with this mesh though that the pivot point for this mesh is set to the back corner of the mesh here. So knowing that, I'm gonna maybe think about this. This is the origin of where this thing sits, and we can actually take the cube and we could push it back like this, and then we could push it right here. So then that way when we drag it into the world, let's go back to our custom buildings area right here. We can just drag this thing in. And if we've set this thing up correctly, we should be able to take this and zero it out and go 0, 0, 0. And it should put it right in the center of the world. So I just tapped F on that so we can take a look at it. And I should be able to just drag this thing straight up, and it should sit right in the middle of the world there like that. So if we've done this correct, all our grid spacing, everything should look pretty good on that. So I think we're good to go. So I definitely wanted to do that. I wanted to make sure it was working correctly. And now I've got this thing where I could just set it off here. It's just a 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter cube right now, which is not all that interesting. Just going to hit end to place it on the floor. But now we could try to take this cube and set the scale for it and try to figure out how big should we make this. So let's try to make this cube 4 times as big as what it is right now. So we've got this here just like that. And it might be worth our effort. We've already looked at how we could take a mesh and we could alter its pivot point on it. So I think I might actually do that for this, just because I don't want to fight with this pivot point of this thing being in the corner is not allowing me to just easily scale this thing from the center, and I think that's kind of a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mesh area. I'm going to take this SM cube, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'll call this SM cube and pivot middle like this. Okay. So to fix the pivot on this, I'm going to have to go and I'll drag it out into the world just like that. And we need to go from the selection mode, and we're going to need to go into the modeling mode. And then we need to go into the form area, and then let's go to edit pivot. And I want this on the bottom, and I want it on the I want it in the center, and I want it on the bottom. And after I do that, I can hit accept for that, and then go ahead and save this. And then now whenever I pull this cube in right here, like this, let's drag this onto the default scene route and make sure that it's just directly under there. So I can get rid of this bigger cube. And now we've got this cube right here in the center. Okay. So take a look at what we got now. We've got the ability to place this thing. We don't have to worry about that pivot point thing going on anymore. And now we should be able to just scale this up just like this. And let's scale this for that. Compile it and save it just like that. Okay, so let's get rid of that one. So this is our blueprint that we've got for the building, and this is it scaled up. I was actually looking at the wrong thing over there, so you can see this is all dynamic for us, so we can actually see exactly what's going on. If I don't like the material on it, then I can go to our custom materials that we made, and maybe for the buildings I throw a darker material in there. We could check that out, or you can do this darker gray, or we can try the light gray and see what that looks like. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'll compile that, and let me just close this. So I know we're not doing a whole lot with this right now, but what I want to do is start populating the world with these cubes and say, these are going to be specific locations in the world. And we're going to drag this out. Something that I should have mentioned whenever we're moving is if you hold down Shift, as you move, it actually moves the camera along with it. So that actually comes in pretty handy at times. So I'm going to put a building right back here. So I'm going to tap F, frame in on that. And I'm going to put it right back in the corner and then hit End. And now I got a building that's going to be right there. And then I have a building. I'm going to hold down Alt and then drag out, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I can move this off to the side right here like that. Okay. So now I got two buildings in the back corner like this. Okay. So that looks pretty cool so far. Hit Control B just to find it back here. And let's continue to build on this. So we're going to go to the viewport, zoom out just so I can see what's going on here, and try to get this framed up over here, just like that. Okay. So again, it's possible that we could put meshes in and drag meshes in from the content browser. It's also possible that you can add meshes from within this add area here. So we could do, obviously, there's a lot of things that we could do. We could do a cylinder. We could put this at the top here, and maybe we scale this up like this. Pull this down just like that. And I'm going to go back out of this modeling mode and just go into the select mode. And we got our custom materials. We could fill this with different materials just like that. And I'd like to at least get a representation of a door on there. Before I do that, I just have to do this thing where I want to put a sphere up top here. I'm going to scale it right in the center there. Actually, I can grab this triangle here. Let's do this. Okay, this is really tripping me out. This, I think this might be a bug, because you're supposed to be able to scale with this middle thing here. If you grab one of these little rails, that is scaling in 2 axes, and then this is just 1. So not quite sure why that's doing what it's doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock this over here for scale and put this to 1.2. Let's do 1.1, something like that. And let's just go ahead and pull this down like there. Actually, let's just do a scale of 0.9. I do want that to stick up a little bit right in through there. And so I'll probably fill that back with that lighter gray, just like that. Compile this and save it. And you can see we've got this update here. Okay, so now let's add a cube. Scroll down here and we'll do a cube. And I'm going to let this be the representation of a door for us. So here's these like this. So we've got something here. And what I'd like to do with this one, scale it this way. I'd like this to be 4, like that, and maybe make that 0.2 and then 0.8. It kind of looks like a cool shape. Maybe I'll go 0.4, and I do have this turned on here, so I need that 0.8. That was constraining all the different size ratios to be the same thing here, and let's do 2, 2, 3 or something like that. I think that looks fairly cool. And then size of 1. And this is a bit too big. Push that right here. And then now that I get it up against the wall, it does look a little bit big to me. And not quite wide enough if our character was actually going to walk through this. I think that was pretty good there. You just got to do a little bit of exploration, trying to figure out, what's the right numbers for this. I think that looks pretty good. And then now I'll just move that back against there a little bit. And maybe this one I fill with a darker color. Just something like that. So there's some nice contrast on there. And once we've got one built, now we can hold down. Actually, this is something that's a little bit weird to build in here. And I did forget about that. You can't just hold down Alt and drag like you normally would in the work area in here. So what we're gonna have to do is this. I'm gonna rename this. Right click and say rename. I'll just call this door 1. And what we have to do is we have to duplicate this. So Control D will duplicate. And then now we can rotate this 90 degrees. And we got something right over here for this. Hit undo. And save this. And then now you can see this this building. Like if we were going to do something with this blueprint and we wanted to only have 2 doors on this thing, we would need to come over here and take a look at this one here. So we could actually rotate this 90 degrees like this, and then we would have the setup that we need. And again, if we built some functionality to this to where we could actually move in and out of this space, then anything that we do to this blueprint will happen to the other ones. So I think this is a pretty good way of being able to prototype things and get a look established for things and kind of know if it's working or not. Always, again, let's compile and save. And let's just pull this down for just a second and let's go ahead and play. And let's take our character, walk by this thing, make sure everything feels pretty good for us. And I think from a gameplay standpoint, I think that would be pretty cool. Now I do have kind of an obstacle here with this thing, which wouldn't allow us to walk across that ledge. So if you wanted to fix something like that, pretty easy, where we could just scale this thing down like that, and maybe, because this is called Z fighting right here, these two polygons sit exactly on top of each other, and so it doesn't know really which one to draw, so it does this weird kind of little shuffle thing that you see there. What we could do is go make this 2.1 or make it 2.05. So it just needs to stick up just a little tiny bit visually so it doesn't overlap like that. And we'll play it one more time. I'll kind of come over here, take a look, and then move through this area right on over to here. Okay, so let's add a little bit more to this. I'm going to actually take this cylinder, and remember, to duplicate it, we can hit Control D, or you can right click over it on this area and we can say duplicate. It's up to you, however you want to do that. You can move this up here. I'm going to scale this uniformly like that. And again, this thing is not scaling correctly the way I want, so I'm just going to use that, get it about this size here, and do even smaller increments on this. Do something like that. Okay, so now let's back up here so we can actually see the changes to that. And that looks cool. But let's do something different than just geometry. Let's actually take this, and I'm just attaching all these objects right here like this. This has got these things underneath of it. Let me just take these and attach it like this. So everything from a hierarchical standpoint just sits right on this default scene root. Otherwise, I'm starting to build up hierarchies, and we could make certain things move with certain things. Like if I have this thing, the sphere, right on the cylinder like this, you can see now that those two things move together. And if we wanted this part of the hierarchy for that, now this entire thing moves together with it. So it's up to you. But I wasn't trying to build that hierarchy, so just wanted to fix that real quick. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and add a point light, and this time we are within this cylinder structure. So now if we move the cylinder structure, it's going to move everything, and it will move the light as well. But I'm going to move the light up on top of the object that we see here, just like that. And what we could do is we could change the color of this to something to make it maybe a little bit more obvious. And what we could do is take the intensity and pull that up quite a bit. So I'm going to make that like 15,000, maybe 25. So this is where you just kind of have to play around with things a little bit. And depending where you place it, it's going to get a little bit more of the light. And then this attenuation radius is the fall off of that. So how far out will that light go? So if we made this really, really intense, I'm going to make this 100. So it's pretty intense, but you can see now we can make it just hit like the top of the thing here. And we'll go ahead and compile that and save it. And if we wanted to make this feel just a little bit more extra, I guess you could say, we can go into the world with this level. They've got a directional light within here, and it's possible we could take the intensity, we could start to pull down the lighting in the world like that, and then that would make this a whole lot more intense, and we could start to build out the light in this area. So watch this. Let's take the attenuation radius, and if I put my cursor right here, I can interactively change that, and you see how that attenuation radius, now that light is starting to hit the world and it's hitting these walls, and we can make this even more intense. So I'll go make that quite a bit intense like that, and then pull this up here like that. So if it goes inside the object, that could be problematic. Like if these doors were cut out, then we can make it look like the lights inside the building. So there's just all kinds of really cool things that we could do with this. And right now it's pretty hard edged as far as the shadow goes on there, and we could do this source radius. So if we want that to be a little bit softer and have a little bit nicer kind of fall off on that, we could do that. And we might as well just try some different lighting combinations to see what might be appealing and what might stand out. So if we got some red, maybe we're saying that there's a little bit of danger, or maybe we make this like an orangish kind of light, make it feel kind of warm and maybe a little bit more inviting. Green's a little creepy. Still kind of purples and blues. So it's up to you, the color choices that you make. I'm probably going to push it in this warmer kind of area, just like that, right? And so again, what I want to have you focus in on is the fact that this is a really powerful tool set that will allow you to you could add lights, you can add meshes, you could add skeletal meshes that have animation on there. There's just so much that you can do with it. But again, from a building standpoint and trying to build out a space, I think it becomes very powerful for you to be able to basically populate the world with these pieces that you have, and very quickly be able to make modifications to the blueprint, this container, and then you're filling out spaces within the world. So you can see, although I'm reducing the amount of light that's in here with these little building towers that I have, I'm starting to add areas of interest. So let's just play real quick just to get a look and a feel for what this might look like and how it might feel. And I do think there's enough there to where it's starting to draw your eye, and it makes you want to look over in that area and makes you want to go and try to explore. And it helps you build out that space as well. Okay, so try this out as a tool. See what you want to build with this and what looks visually interesting to you. And I think you'll see the power of this tool come to life. All right, we're going to take a look at how we can get objects from another program like Maya and then pull them into Unreal. So then that way we can get much more complex modeling done in a different package. So I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to Maya, and I can show you what I've built here. You can see I've got a grouping, and I called this door frame, and then I have a door just like this. And I've put this in the center of the world and the grid here. This group that I've made for all my different parts and pieces, there is no transforms on this, and then I put the pivot point at the origin of the world right there for that. And I also did the same thing for the door. Now, whenever I pull this into Unreal, it will recognize these pivot points that I've got set up within here. And it's going to make it very easy for me to later animate this door just going up and down. We'll take a look at a blueprint system on how we can get these things out from there. But to export these things out, we just need, you can have a group. These are all actually separate objects, so we don't have to have these all merged together. That's up to you if you want to do that or not. I am going to show you some import options to where if you want to import these in, and have them come in as separate objects, you can do that, or you can tell Unreal to combine them at import time, which is actually a very powerful thing. What that allows you to do is in your program like Maya or Blender or something like that, it allows you to keep your modeling process to where it's a bit more fluid and it's a bit more open. So I don't have to combine all these things. All I need to do is throw it in a group like that. So I would just select multiple objects and hit Control G, and that will group it. Same hotkey that you have for some grouping inside of Unreal. So that makes it pretty convenient for you. Again, I do have a piece of geometry here for this door that I've made, and that's a separate piece. So when I get these into Unreal, I want this door frame to be one object, and I want this door to be another object. So they should be two separate objects, but they're going to work together as if they're one holistic whole piece. So let's get these out of here. So we're going to go to this door frame. I just need to go to File, Export, Selection. I'm going to do the option box and then make sure that that's set to FBX as the file type for that. So I'll just go ahead and say Export Selection. I've already got a door. I called this the gate for this. And let me just do a version 2 so you can see the options for exporting this thing out. So I'll go ahead and save that. Usually whenever I export the FBXs out, I've got smooth groups on, tangent binormals. I get the smooth mesh thing on there. And if it is a skeletal mesh, then I might have some animations. But this should be just fine for your options for exporting this thing out like that. And so that will give you all the different export options that you need for that. And did the same thing for the door, just exported that as an FBX as well. So let's hop back on over to Unreal. So here we are inside of Unreal. And the only thing that I've done in this case is I want to keep this organized. So I've made a folder inside of the content area and just called that gates and door. You can name this whatever you want. The name is up to you, and that doesn't really affect anything depending on what name that you give this thing. If we want to be ultra organized with things, we can go ahead and make a meshes folder. So you can just right click, make a new folder and call this meshes. Like that, if you want to do that. And I know later I'm going to build a blueprint, so I could do that right now as well. I'll just call this blueprint like that. And I've got the parts and pieces that I need as far as the folder structure and the directory structure. So let's go into meshes, and we're going to right click and we're going to say import to current folder. And so here is the gate. I'll go ahead and open that up. Now, if you remember, whenever I exported that from Maya, I put it in a group and it's got a bunch of different separate pieces. So if I left it alone, it would probably import in, and there's going to be a lot of pieces for that. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to put this on the static meshes area, and you can see that there's a tag right here that I turned on, and it says combine static meshes. So when I do that, it's going to combine it into one object, and it's going to make it really convenient for me. I could leave this on. It's going to create a material for me. I'm not the biggest fan of that. If I go to materials, I can tell it to not import the materials, and I'd rather actually do that. Well, I'll do this. I'll leave it on for you just so you can see what's going to happen, and then the other one I'll just turn it off. So let's go ahead and import this in, and you can see what it's going to do. It's going to import the mesh in, and it's going to make a material based off of whatever was exported from Maya or Blender. Let's just double click on the material and see what we got. So it's actually a material instance is actually what it's creating for us. And so maybe you might want to explore what you have within through here. So it's got a diffuse color. So it's actually pulling this parent material that actually exists, and you can take a look at that, and it's probably pretty complicated. So if you want to go ahead and use that, go for it. It's up to you. I'd rather just use the simple material setup that we've got before in the past. You can take this material, you can just go ahead and get rid of it and delete it. And if you notice, that material is gone, and this thing handles it just fine. So we double click this to view the static mesh viewer. You can see it's going to take the default world grid material, and it'll just throw that on there. So no big deal for that. Okay. So we got our first mesh in. I'm just going to go ahead and save this real quick, and then let's go ahead and import in the second one. So we'll go import into current folder. I'm going to grab what is called the door. That's going to be the part that moves up and down. I don't have to do the combine static meshes because there's only one mesh. It won't hurt if it's on there, so I'll just leave it on there. I am going to turn off this import materials, and I'll just show you. So we do it that way, and there's no material that's made with it. It automatically puts that default material that's on there. I'll go ahead and just save this one as well. So what I like to do at this point is we could easily throw these into the world and take a look at them and evaluate them. So everything's working pretty good for us. The issue is they're going to have this default gray checkered material in there, and I'm not a fan of that. I would rather all the different parts and pieces that I start to build with are starting to use the custom materials that I've made. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to drag it right here into this slot, just like that. I'll go ahead and save that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go to the door part, open that up, and we can have multiple one of these windows open at the same time. That's nice and convenient for us. I'll just click and drag this one over here like that, and we've got that nice and prepped and ready to go. Okay, so there's our two different meshes. I'm going to intentionally wait to talk to you about collision and how that can be an issue. And I know that there's a problem with these models already, but I want you to experience what this might be like in a scenario where you're just bringing in some meshes yourself and how we can fix some of that stuff. So I'm just going to close this down. And then we do have this blueprint area that we made for our folder structure. So I'm just going to right click in there. And again, just like we did before last time, we're going to right click and we're going to make a blueprint class. This time we're going to make an actor. We can call this BP underscore gate and door, something like that. Again, this is completely up to you. Whatever you want to name these things, it's up to you, and you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to double click this, open this up, and just like what we looked at before, we've got the viewport, we've got our construction script, and we got the event graph. Now, this one, we are going to build something that is a bit more complex. We're going to actually make it to where the character can go up to the door, and whenever he enters close to the door will actually go up, and then whenever he gets away from the door, then the door will go down. So we will be building in this event graph area, but we don't have to really worry about that right now. Let's just get our parts and pieces organized and put in here. So we got our blueprint. Let's just go to our meshes folder. We can take both these right here, and let's go ahead and throw them in here. So both of our meshes are in. Let me just go ahead and zoom out just a little bit so we can see what's going on in here. So just to make sure, you know, the navigation in here is just the same as us being in the Unreal area. And we got this. This is working. Our pivot point set. Everything's cool. Everything's good to go. I'm just going to go ahead and compile this, and I'm going to save it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of these meshes that we just drug in. I'm going to go to our blueprint area, and now I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out one of these right here. So let's just set this off to the side for just a second. I'm going to pull this forward, and I'm going to duplicate it, hold down Alt, and drag a copy. Then I'll just hit the space bar, and then I'll go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees, just like that. And then I'll move this forward right about there and push this over. And then just check and make sure I'm not intersecting with the wall on that. So I think that looks pretty good. And I want to do the same thing for this. I want to push this all the way against the wall, just like this. And again, while you're doing this, if you ever need to frame in, tap F, we can use that Maya method of moving around. So we just hold down Alt and left mouse drag, and we can take a look at things that way. And now I'm just going to try to get these butted up on the corners like this. I'm going to hit Control S just to save my work here. So again, the cool thing is this thing's all live. It's a blueprint, right? So we raise the door over here, and we can just kind of check out like what's going to happen eventually when we do this. Let's compile it and save. And I'll throw this down here for just a second, and let's go ahead and play. And like I was saying, I think there's going to be a problem here, and I'll explain to you what's going on. So looks like the door is open, but we can't run through the door. So what is going on here? If we take a look at the collision on the model, you'll start to understand what is actually happening. Even though you can't see the collision, there is collision on these models. So let's go to the meshes area. Let's go to this gate and take a look at this. Okay, and then we are going to take a look at the collision, and if we do what these different things that we can show, let's just do our simple collision, and you can see that when we import it in, it automatically takes a look at the model and it tries to generate some collision for us. It did a pretty good job of capturing the shape, but it didn't recognize this like hole that we have within through there. So I'm going to just select the collision and I'll get rid of it altogether. Okay. And I'll show you a way that we can regenerate this collision and have it be more complex, right? So if we click this auto convex collision and we come over here, let's just go to this section and we hit apply. It'll do its best that it can to try to fit things to this. Still not the best. If you up this hole count and then do this max verts and do that again, it's still not doing a great job for this. If you up this number, it takes a bit longer for it to generate, but it does give us a whole lot better of a fit for that. So it's possible that you could generate the collision this way. I don't need anything like too crazy as far as collision goes. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go to collision and I'm just going to remove the collision. And it's possible that we can build with shapes that are much more simplified. So you can see that there's spheres, there's a capsule shape, there's a box simplified, and then there's these other types of collision, which if I let it run, that's probably something close to like what it did at the very beginning. So I'm just going to go and do one of these add box simplified collisions. So it does a good job of capturing the overall shape for this thing, but we have that same problem we had before where if I go to try to run through the center of this, the collision is going across the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is actually take the scale tool, so we can hit the space bar on here like this, scale it down, then move it up right around there. I'm going to try to get this to fit a little bit better. I'm going to turn off the snapping for scaling so I can just eyeball this a little better. If I deselect it, you can just select it again. No big deal. And I'll try to push this down and I can turn off grid snapping as well. So I think that looks fairly decent. And then I can hold down Alt and I can drag out a copy of this. And then let's just scale it this direction like this. And we'll scale it up like that. And if these boxes intersect each other, it's not going to hurt anything. So no big deal. Now I'm going to be pretty liberal with this, where I know this is a bit thicker here, so the collision would stop right there. I do have a piece of geometry down there, so that does make sense for something like that. But if I wanted a better fit, I could scale this down, make sure I'm capturing this, and then I would have to scale this in and get it much closer to that. I'm not worried about that granular level of detail in there. So I'm just going to hold down Alt and then click and drag out and make a copy over there. And let's go ahead and save this. And now we can check out what's going on with this. So let's push this down again. Go ahead and play it. And let's come on over here and take a look. Now we can run through this door that we've made. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to go back to this, and I do want to pull the door down, and I'm just going to push this down here like that. And if you notice, as we raise up, that we've got a value over here. So to raise the door all the way to like where we would probably want it to be open, that's going to be 250 Unreal units. And if we just want to put that back down to 0, we can actually reset that and put it back to 0. So just something to kind of keep in mind for some of the values that we're working with here. So I'll go ahead and run over here again, and then just check and make sure that the collision is working with this piece of the door. And now I know that those two pieces will actually work for me. and we can start building the blueprint logic for this to have the door go up and down and do that. Okay, so let's start working on that. All right, let's go ahead and start working on making this door open and close based off whenever the player gets next to the door. And we're going to be using the blueprint system, and we are going to be doing visual scripting language through this. So this is such a big topic. Just because this is such a quick introduction course, I'm going to try to just give you the basics that you need to get these components working, just so you can try it out and understand just how the system works. You can see in the event graph, they give you these certain nodes that you can start off with. Like event begin play is basically as soon as we go into the game, this would fire something off, and you can see the way I like to think of this, the way the logic works is almost like connecting a series of wires that have to be hooked in together, and that current kind of flows through that wiring to go to the next step and to the next step and so on and so forth, right? And so this is like turning the light switch on and saying, hey, the game just started, kick this thing off, right? What we're going to be using is, you can see there's an event that is begin overlap, right? So like if our character came within a certain volume and it knew like, hey, the character's in this volume, what do you want to do? Do you want to fire something off? Yes, I want to play an animation of the door going up in the air, and then it will also recognize when you have left that volume as well. So like when I leave the volume, whatever that animation was to make the door go up, I want to reverse that animation and I want the door to go down. So that's basically what we're going to do. We're not going to get super fancy. Again, I just want you to understand this concept of how that we hook up the nodes and how we get the system working. Okay, so we don't need this event begin play. We can actually select the stuff. We can get rid of it if you want to be tidy and clean and everything like that. That's completely up to you. I don't really care about it. I'm going to leave it here. I'll leave that up to your discretion if you want to get rid of this stuff or not. Okay. I'm going to hop over to the viewport, and what I do want to do is make a box collision for us. And so I'm going to go to add, and you can see if we start to scroll down, we've got basic shapes within here, but then we also have this area for collision. So I do want this box collision, and I'm going to need to raise this up, and I'm going to need to scale this out. So I'd like it to stick out on both sides, so this door would work on both sides for us. And as long as we're kind of in the center here, like this, as soon as our character enters this area, the door would go up, and if we went out of that cube, the door would go down. And so I think a volume about that size would work for both sides of the door. Again, this is just a very, very simple example. And I could just take this box, maybe if you want to rename it, you can right click on there. We can say rename box collider. You can name it whatever you want. Okay. Okay. So now that we have the box, this collision box for us, we can actually do something with it. So with it selected over here, if we scroll down to the very bottom, there's a way to get to that overlap event. So we can create a component begin overlap. We could click it there, or I want you to get used to this. We can right click within here, and there's all the different like things that we can, all these different nodes that we can get. So it's very overwhelming. This context sensitive thing does help when you know what you're looking for, but a lot of times really like to be honest, my knowledge of being like somebody that does blueprints well, you could highly specialize and you could build a career off of that. So that is not my wheelhouse, and it's not what I do. I can hack my way through this, and I oftentimes take a look at what other people have built, or maybe what Epic has built, and try to dissect that and make it work. So I do fumble around this area just a little bit. I can make it through there, but basically we've got this add event for box collider. So that's another place that we can do this. And if we go to collision and we say add on component begin overlap, it's the same thing that we're looking at over here. So again, sometimes in Unreal, there's different ways to get to the same node and things like that, right? So I'm just going to go grab this here. And if we would have done a search and say like begin overlap, maybe we could find it that way. I'm just going to grab this here, and I'm also going to select it like that and just see if we can say begin, and you can see that it's going to try to find all the different nodes that we have for begin. And this is actually context sensitive, so it's actually taking a look at like what we've got selected. And so there's quite a bit that you can do with this begin thing that's on here. Right now, if we turn off context sensitive, there's even like there's a whole lot more, right, that you can do. Sometimes I have found that this context sensitive thing is limiting me from finding the node that I actually need to use, right? Probably a little bit too much right now for just this part, but I just want you to understand kind of how the system works a little bit, okay? So we've got this begin overlap. And as soon as our character, actually right now, anything collides with this box, we can tell it to do something, right? And what do I want to do? I want to be able to take the door, and I'm going to click and drag this out. And so now I've got this reference to the door, and I would like to move the door up. And in order for me to be able to do that and animate the thing, what we're going to use is another node, and what we're going to use is called a timeline. So I'm just going to right click and type in timeline, and I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom. The thing that I'm actually looking for is this add timeline. So I'll go ahead and click this, and you can see it's going to give us this node. I can immediately give it a name, and I'll call this door raise up like that. Okay. And so whenever we collide with this, we want this to actually play. So I'm going to take that current. So we got this volume, our character goes and hits it, and then it turns this on and sends this electrical current out and tells it to, what do we want to do? I want to start playing this thing, and then this is actually going to be an animation. So let's double click on this, and it'll open up this new area for us to actually make an animation track. So let's make a track. I'm going to do a float track because that's just going to be a value that can go negative and positive and have, different decimal points and things like that, right? I only need this thing to go up and down. So I only need like one float track, which is just going to give us this value that can either go positive or negative. Now, if I needed this to move in the world and I needed to move in X, Y, and Z, then I would use something like a vector track, which has got 3 different values that it can drive. If I was doing color, we can do that, or event track. So we're just going to use this float track, and you can give the track a new name, and I can call this door up and down like this. And immediately it's going to say, what's the length of the animation? So how long do we want this door to actually go and raise up? 5 seconds might actually be a pretty long time. So let's just take the length and let's put it at 2, and you can see this shortens within here. Okay. So I'm just going to right click on there, and I'm going to say add key right here like this. And then the time I do notice this, like I always create them, and then I just want to put the time at 0. The value to start off is 0. And then if you remember earlier, I was saying, pay attention to that door. And when we raise the door up, how many different units was it? So it was actually around 250 units to go up. So I'm going to right click in here and say add key to curve right here. And then the time value, I'll make this 2. And then the value, I'll make this to 50 like that. And it might be hard to see this, but if I hit these little icons here, then it will maximize this space right here to see the width and then the height of that. And so we're going from 0 over the time of 2 seconds all the way up to 250. Okay, so this is going to produce a linear curve for us. If we wanted to have ease in and ease out on this, we could right click on there, and then we could say auto like that, and it will put an auto curve right there like that. But like this would change the animation of the thing, right? So if we wanted it to slowly open up, and then it gets to the very top, and then kind of very quickly gets here, so it would go slow and then get up. That's kind of what that curve is doing over time. Now, if we left this set to auto like this, it's going to start off really slow, go up, and then slowly get to the very top. So I think that that might be the most appealing thing. I'll leave it up to you to kind of play around with what that looks like, but that at least gives us our animation track that we've got for this. So let's hop back over to the event graph, and then now we've got this to where this is actually going to fire off. And now we need it to actually do something. So now if you notice that track that we made in here, and we called it door up and down, now you can see we've got an out for this. And this is actually going to give us some type of value for things. What I need to do with this door is I need to transform it. I need to have it move in the actual world. So whenever you transform an object, you're actually, in Unreal terms, transforming it could mean you're changing its location, rotation, and scale altogether. So that's probably a little bit too much. Now we can do this if we drag off and we look for location. We can set something, and if you set it, you're telling it to go to this location. We could also do add relative location. So that means wherever this blueprint sits in the world, hey, I just want to do like an offset from wherever it sits in the world. If we told it to set it explicitly, it might be sitting over here and then all of a sudden it like would jump to this specific location. So we don't really want to do that. So I'm going to click this add relative location, and you can see that, and we're going to tell it to update after it's told this animation to play. We're going to tell it to update. And now we got this value for up and down. The issue with this is you can see this delta location that we have. We've got an X, Y, and Z. Z is the up and down for the Unreal world. And we really only need this value to go get plugged into Z right here. So they've made it possible for you to do two different things. Let me show you this. This is not the good thing. So if we hook this up, it automatically converts this float to a vector, so 3 different values. But that value that we just did is now going to be fed into X, Y, and Z. So it's not going to go straight up and down. It's going to go like do some weird stuff. Okay, so that's not what we want to do. We can actually take this and we can right click on it and say split struct pin. And now that will give us the ability to plug into the location on X, Y, or Z. And in our case, we just want this to go up like this. So we're going to put this into Z. And then we did hook up our door, and then the door is the target. Now, whenever I actually did a search for this, I had this selected. And when we right click and we got this context sensitive thing on there, it already knows that when we're doing this location thing, that when we tell it to do this node, it automatically hooked it up for us. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so let's just test this out and let's see if things are working for us. Let's go ahead and compile and save. That's something that you do with your blueprint system a lot. You need to compile it, and then you're compiling the code, and then go ahead and save it, and then you can jump within through here. So let's go ahead and play and see what this looks like. I'll just run over here, and as soon as I get close enough to the door, it opens up for us, and it went off into infinity. Okay, so what's going on with that? Let's go over here and try this one. Same deal, just got that thing way up in the air. Okay, let's figure out what is happening with this. Let's going to drag this up here like this. And I think I know what I did here. So I used the wrong node. Let's go ahead and drag this out and look for location again. Instead of adding relative location, let's just go ahead and see if we can find a set relative location. So they look very similar. We're going to be able to do the same thing with this. We'll split it. And we can even keep that old node around and unhook it just to see what's going on here. So let's see the difference between this adding and setting. So let's go ahead and save this, pull this down, and let's go ahead and play again and see what we got. And that's what we're looking for here. So we can go to the next door, and then that one will open for us. And now the only thing that we need to work on is making the doors actually close. So let's go ahead and hit escape. And let's go ahead and take this node. We know we don't want to use that one anymore. So that's actually good that I could show you the difference between the adding versus setting. But again, you want to make sure that this is, you're using the relative. So it has some reference of where it actually sits within the world. Okay. So we've got this on component begin overlap, and then we also have the ability to do this box collider. And let's go right click on here and add event collision, and we'll do add on component end overlap. Okay, so now after we move out of the thing, we can do this reverse, and we'll reverse the animation on it. And let's just reverse from the end and compile that and then save. And let's take a look at what we got. Okay, so let's move along through here, and it's going to open up for us. If we step back away from it, it should close for us. And now we got a nice little system for some automatic doors opening and closing. Okay, so I don't want to get more complex with this. Just wanted to give you an introduction to maybe how this system works, how it could be useful. But there's so much that you can do with this. I've built some little simple systems for the doors on there where we've got automatic opening doors. It's also possible to basically make it to where the character comes within there, and if the character comes in there, it puts some text up there and says, "Hey, do you want to open the door?" And we'll go ahead and click like the O for open the door. The other thing that you could do is make sure, like you would do a branching system. If you right click in here and type in branch, this gives you some logic to say, before we open this door, and let's get rid of some of this over here. Before we open this door, we can make a condition and make it make that into a variable and say, do we have the key? And if you have the key, then it will go ahead and play the animation and open that thing up. And if you don't have the key, then it's going to go false and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's a checks system, for things. So there's all kinds of just very interesting and fun things that you could do with these systems. But yeah, the sky's kind of the limit on some of this stuff. The other thing that you can do is you could tell this to play sound. So you could have the door raise up, and then you could also hear audio happening, and you could play particle effects. Maybe there's an explosion, or there's like a spark or something to that effect. Or we could have a light that turns on or off depending if the door is open or closed. So there's just a whole lot to this whole thing. So I know you're going to get in depth with this as time goes on, but again, just wanted to get you exposed to a very, very simple system, just so you can just play around with that just a little bit and just feel that there is this thing that you got to learn with all the different nodes, that there's a way to search for the nodes, and there's a way to hook these things up. One thing I could say about breaking nodes is this: if we hold down Alt, you can click on that to break a node. Let's right click on here and type in reroute, and then you can see there's at the bottom, there's an add reroute node. If you wanted to keep this a little bit more organized, if you needed to, you could do certain things like this with this reroute node. So that comes in handy as well. And we can just select this guy and get rid of it. Push this back down. If you want to keep everything nice and clean, you can select around this, and we can tap C to comment this, and then I can just say simple door up and down like this. And then after that's made, then it's real easy for you to move the entire thing around. You can control the coloring of this, so you can be very, very organized with this stuff. But they've made a pretty amazing system for you to be able to build some visual scripting within the engine. So I want to show you that it's possible to control other things with blueprints, not just physical objects and things like that. We can actually change some material definitions on things, and you can do some interesting effects with that. I'm going to go ahead and hit play real quick and then just run into this part of the level. And you can see what I've done now, just like whenever the door opens, I've put a collision box in there. As it gets closer to the wall, you can see that the material on the light changes and it gets a lot brighter. And if you step away from it, it will dim up just like that. And that works in conjunction with the ability for the door to open, just like we've done before. So now we've got a visual indicator that maybe something interesting could happen with the door. So as we get closer to it, it draws our attention to it even more. And then as we get close to it, then it's going to go ahead and open for us. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how we're able to create this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the blueprint for the door like we had before. And go ahead and load that up. And I'm going to show you the different components that I built for this. So if we go to the viewport, you can see, just like we did with the old collision volume, I just made a new collision volume and made it a whole lot larger because I wanted the character to get pretty close to this and be able to interact with these lights and change that. So as we get closer, we're going to be able to do that. Again, to add the collision, it's just real simple. We go to add, and then you can scroll down and you need to find the collision. I just added a box collision and then changed the name of this to Dyna Material. And again, scaling this, so if we tap the spacebar on here to get to the scale, it's real easy for us to dial that up and down and try to figure out just what's the distance that you want this effect to happen on here. Okay. So if we go to the event graph, this is the box collider that we made here. Again, we just had to have it selected. There's different ways that we can get to the overlap event. If we scroll down here on the details panel, we can do an begin overlap, and we can do that. And we can also do an end overlap. And I'll give you these two nodes that you see here. That's the one way that you can do it, or we have it selected. Remember, if we right click within here and we say add event and do a collision, that's where we can get the begin overlap and end overlap that you see here. Just like we did before as well, I have a timeline on here, and this one is a little bit different. I need to talk to you about the material that we added before. So we created a glow material, and what I did is I took that glow material and I duplicated it. So I right click and we can duplicate that, and then now we've got this material that you see here. I just changed the name of it, so it's just like this one, except for I add the word Dyna to it, so I know that this is the dynamic material. I did take that material and I toned it back a little bit. So you can see here, if I double click on this to take a look at the dynamic material instance on this one, the emissive color, I just tone that back to where it's a little bit more dull. And then that way, whenever we get up close to it, we can change the values and make it go quite a bit higher. So it's just easier to see. And I also want a special material just for this case where it's going to be this dynamic thing. I already liked what was going on with the glow material over here, so I wanted to keep that and not change that. So that's why I duplicated this. And if you're going to do this dynamic material instance, you should probably duplicate that as well. So on that mesh that we've got, if we go to viewport and you see these meshes that I added, I actually went over to Maya and I modeled these meshes, and I've got these in place. We've already taken a look at how we can export that out. So we can go to File, Export Selection, just do the option box, choose that as FBX, and then we can pull that in just like we did before with the other parts and pieces that we had. Okay, so that's getting this, this model in here. You can see I do like to take the model and go to the static mesh viewer, and I like to make sure that I have the right material already assigned here. It's possible that we could do the assignment of the material right here in the blueprint, but I like to just make sure that it's on the the pieces. So I like to set it here. It's up to you where you want to do that. So now I've got that material, and I know that there's a value on here that I'm able to drive. I want to control this emissive color. This is what I named it based off of, if you remember, when we set up our master material, we just right-clicked on the emissive color area, and we told it to convert that to a parameter, so it automatically named it for us. What I have found is this process, sometimes it's hard for me to remember exactly how I spelled something or what the spacing is in between there. To get that name, you just right click on here and you can say copy display name, and that'll copy it and you can paste that into other areas. Okay, so now let's start talking about what we need to do to get this dynamic material thing going. And what I'm going to show you is in the construction script what I was going to do. So in order to get a reference to this node for the wall sconce, the mesh, you just click and drag it out. And when we have this drag out like this, if we drag off from here and we start typing in create dynamic, we can get this create dynamic material instance like we see here. So that's how you get this node there that we have up there. Then the source material, it's going to be blank, and it's possible that you could either go over here, you could select it right here, and then you can plug it in right there. That's one way that you can add it. The other way is if you go to the drop-down list and you start to search for it, and in this case it was m_orange, and then I would find this dynamic material instance like that. Okay, so there's two different ways that you can add this. Now you do need this node that you see here. Let me hold on Alt and I'll get rid of it real quick just so you can see. You're going to have this return value, and all you have to do is right click on it and say promote to variable, and it's going to create this variable that you see right down here. And then we can plug this here and take the return value, plug this in right there. And what you can give it a name. I just called it emiss glow dyna. So it's really up to you, whatever that name is. So that's not really super important. But that's the first part of making sure that we've got that dynamic material instance created. And then if we come back over to the event graph, here's where we have this. We are going to create this set vector parameter value on material. So again, we can drag this out and get a reference to it. And if we just drag out and say, I'm going to type in vector and type in material like this, and you can see we can get this set vector parameter on material. So that's where this node came from right there, like that. So let's do this. I'm just going to move this out of the way here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this like that. And then the parameter name that I want to control, what's the thing on the material that I want to control? And that's where we can just paste in that name. This was where I was telling you this comes in handy, where we can just right click on this and we can copy the display name, and then we can take that and plug it directly in here. Okay, so we do need to have this hooked up here to the target. So this is what we're setting on, and then this is the name of the thing that we're changing. Now in this case, on this material, you can see that we're controlling a red, green, and blue values. So that's why we're using a vector. So a vector is 3 different values. If we wanted to do something like metallic, roughness, or specular, you see how that's only one value? That's a scalar value. So I just want to show you, if you ever get in that situation, the difference there is we would drag out from this and then type in scalar. And then you can see we can find this set scalar parameter value on materials. So this will give you the control to control one single value, and you can see the target of this looks a little bit different. This one's yellow because it's driving three different values, and then this one's green because it's a scalar, it's a float. So those are your 2 different scenarios that you'll use for this one. We're controlling red, green, and blue with this. And what we can do, I wanted to control this over time, so you go into the collision volume right here, and then I wanted to take the values from where they sit and I wanted to slowly ramp them up and make them more intense. So that's why I'm using a timeline here. I want to go ahead and double click on that to go in there. And just to make sure you remember to find a timeline, we right click on here, type in timeline, scroll to the very bottom down here, and you can click this add timeline that you see here like that. Okay, so we'll double click this. And what we've done before, we made a track and we made a float track. This time, instead of using a float track is a single value and it's decimal points. It can go negative, positive, and we can go up and down with those values. This time I need a vector track. I need a 3-value thing that we're going to use. So added this vector track, just gave it a name within through here. So you can right click and you can rename it. You can call it whatever you want. And then needed to add the keyframe data for this. This is where this gets a little bit more confusing, especially if this is like the first time that you've done this. If we see all the X, Y, and Z curve data for everything, when you go to add a new curve point to this, you might be like over one of these lines and it's like, hey, do I have to add a keyframe for each one of these things? What I found is a little bit easier is if you just hover your cursor off of any one of these curves, and then you right click and you can say add key to all curves, and that'll give you the key data for this. You would probably have to select this and then take the time, and you could choose like, hey, I want this curve to be at 0.25, something like that. Okay. The other thing is they've got these little eye icons where you can turn everything off and you can look at just X, Y, and Z. And I also need you to think about this correlation. I know it says X, Y, and Z, but we're using it as RGB. So think of this as red, green, and blue. And they've got it color coded for you too. So that might be helpful. So if you ever need to get to one of these single values on here, like you can see, I started off with my red and I overdrove the value. So the red value is at 4. So that's giving it a little bit of glow to it. If we go to the green and select that, that's a value of 1. And then blue is set to 0. Okay. So that's what I'm starting off with. And then I just went over here to the end. I'm using a length of 2 for how long this animation is going to go for. We just right click in here and then we can add a key to all curves. I would have to select all of these and then select the time. I just set it to explicitly be 2 seconds long. Okay. And then I took the red value, and you can see if I click on that, I really cranked it up to something pretty high. So it's 500. And then for the green, I put that at 100, and then this one is still, the blue is still at 0. So it's going to give us this value that you actually see here is what we're starting off with. So it's got a little bit of glow to it, a little bit of intensity, but as we step into that volume, it's going to, over 2 seconds, ramp up and then give us these values that you see over here. And so that the out of that is played here. There's only one other change that I did to things, where earlier in the video, I showed you whenever I go out of the volume and we reverse it, I was using this reverse from end. And what I noticed was whenever I got my character and I get up close to this, if the door starts opening up real quick and then I step away from it, it kind of snaps the animation to play from the very end and then go back down. So a change that I made was, instead of reverse on end, I just clicked and drug this into reverse. And then now it's got this really nice thing where I'll show you, we get close to it, we step away from it, and it's really easy to go back and forth from that. Okay. So again, just make sure we compile, everything's looking good. We'll go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to close this down, and then let's go ahead and play. I'll do F11 to go into full screen mode. And then we'll move over here and you can see what we got going on, where I can get close to it and you can see the value gets intense. And if I step back away from it over the duration of 2 seconds, it'll go back down on there. This is what I was talking about with the door. Now, if I get close to it and I step away, it doesn't play the full animation. It actually starts to go down for me. There are some ways with blueprints that we could tell it explicitly, like, hey, you get close to the door, it goes all the way up, and even if you move away, then it waits till you plays that animation, goes down. that's starting to get things a bit more complicated at that point. So I just wanted to show you that little tiny change, and I think this actually feels pretty fun and makes your level feel a little bit more interesting. But now we got a little bit of visual feedback for the user to know that, hey, maybe there's something worth investigating my time and getting closer to this thing and then interacting with it. Okay. All right, so that is everything that I'd like to take and show you right now for Unreal. When we've been able to get inside of here, get an understanding of the engine. I know we're not getting super complex with things, but I'm sure, just being a first-time user, I remember how overwhelmed I was with everything that's there. So I know that there's a whole lot more learning that's going to happen on your journey with Unreal, but I hope this gives you a really good look at the engine, gives you some ideas of what's possible, and at least gives you a framework to start playing around with things and having fun and doing some creation on your own.